We're going to call tonight's meeting to order. West Hollywood City Council, August 1st, 6:02 p.m., and we'll start with the land acknowledgement. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather and that is currently known as the City of West Hollywood is the occupied, unceded, seized territory of the Gabrielino Tongva and Gabrielino Kizh peoples. Steve Martin, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Steve. Can we please get a roll call?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Councilmember D'Amico.
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson.
Present.
Councilmember Horvath. Mayor Pro Tem Shine.
Present.
Mayor Meister.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. And we did not have a closed session this evening. It was canceled, so there is no report from our city attorney. And so we will move to approval of the agenda. Do we have any suggestions for this evening? Yes, Councilmember Erickson.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I was wondering if we could move item 5A, the Housing Element Annual Progress Report, onto consent.
I'm okay with that. How, everybody? Okay.
All right.
Yep.
I was wondering if we could move item 4B onto consent, and maybe Steve or David could give a little bit of a park update during their comments.
So that 4B is the park, West Hollywood Park? Yeah. Do we have Councilmember Horvath? You're okay with that? Councilmember D'Amico? Thumbs up? Okay.
And then I was hoping that item 4F is the Planning Commission appointment. I'm ready to make an appointment, but I was hoping that if my colleagues are not, we could just say that now to serve the public not having to stay here all night. But if we're ready to make it, we should do it tonight because I think the position's been vacant too long.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Councilmember D'Amico?
I'm ready. Cool.
Okay.
And then those are all that I'm at, but I'm open to more if more of my colleagues have anything else.
Okay, so far we have moving to consent 4B, which is the West Hollywood Park update, and the 5A housing element.
Mayor, if I may, I wanted to suggest item 4E to move to consent, as well as item 5B, which has to do with the Housing Trust Fund.
I have a lot of questions on 5B, so if we can keep that where it is. But 5A, I'm sorry, 4E, yeah, that would be fine. That's the resolution declaring that offenses related to the mushrooms are a low enforcement priority. Any other changes?
Can we move the block by block one, 4D, under consent?
I have questions.
Okay.
If that's okay. Okay, so we have 4B, West Hollywood Park, 4E, low priority on mushrooms, and 5A, housing element, moving to consent calendar. Okay, great. Do we have any changes from staff?
There are no changes from staff.
Sorry, forgot to ask.
It's okay. Can we get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this evening's agenda. Councilmember D'Amico.
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson.
Yes.
Councilmember Horvath.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Shine.
Yes.
Mayor Meister.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Great. Okay. Do we have any adjournment motions this evening? Councilmember Horvath?
Thank you, Mayor. This one is slightly sweet, but Mayor Max II For those who are familiar with the city of Idlewild, Mayor Maximus Mighty Dog Mueller II was the second mayor of Idlewild, California. As Idlewild is an unincorporated town, it has no local government. The town has elected community members' pets to serve as mayor since 2012. Mayor Max II was a golden retriever. He became mayor in 2013 when the first Mayor Max died. Mayor Max was vibrant, happy, and healthy until his death. He brought joy to many people in Idlewild as well as visitors as he visited businesses, attended special events, and took part in community gatherings. The family that cared for Mayor Max was extraordinary, and he was a legend in the community, and I know he's certainly missed. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Erickson.
Thank you so much. This one goes out to all of my Trekkies out there, but to Nichelle Nichols, who passed away, was not only a phenomenal actress, but someone that really broke through barriers for representation of women, and particularly women of color in the sciences, and to be astronauts. And so, to all of my friends on Twitter that asked if I would respond to them, because I guess I was outed as a Trekkie, I would like to adjourn in her memory tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember Erickson. Mayor Pro Tem, any adjournment motions? Okay. All right, we will move on now to presentations, and I believe, Councilmember Erickson, you have a presentation.
Thank you so much, Mayor. This goes without saying, but I'm sitting in Councilmember D'Amico's seat right now, so you see where I'm at, John, but John reached over to me, talked to me last meeting and said, we should honor someone in this community that's given so much of their time, so much of their energy, and has truly gained so much community trust. And that is no other than Shay Gibson, the head of our Block by Block Ambassador program here. This presentation to Shay goes without saying about all of his operation manager work for Block by Block, but to know Shay and his dedication to our city, to our businesses, to our residents is something that is exemplary. We are lucky to have someone with such dedication to public safety, but ultimately someone that has such deep care for our community here. I'm not going to relitigate the horrible things that have been said about someone with such upstanding value and honor in this community, but it goes without saying that on behalf of all of us sitting up here, as well as those all watching at home, and to all of those people that you have truly made sure that they felt safe in our community, we owe you a debt of gratitude, and we want to say thank you from all of us to you. Yeah, come on down.
So I kind of just want to make this short and sweet. I do appreciate everything that you all have been able to provide me with here, as far as a canvas to kind of create art, if you will, as far as in the safety realm. We definitely try to do the best that we can here, and we will continue doing that. I do appreciate this so much. So does my family. I also want to thank all the people who have shown me support through this situation that we went through up here, if you will. But I do want to thank all the council members, definitely Councilmember Wilson, Erickson, Mayor Meister, Pro Temp Shine, and Horvath, as well as D'Amico. I do see you up there, sir. Again, I want to also just thank my supporting staff as far as Block by Block goes. They've been fantastic in their support of me. And again, I just want to continue doing the best job that I can here and continue to try to raise the bar for the citizens of West Hollywood. So again, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Shay. And now we have Mayor Pro Tem.
To go along with the theme of the evening of our gratitude, this proclamation is for the Block by Block security ambassadors. Whereas Block by Block has provided security ambassador services to the city of West Hollywood since 2013, and I'm going to add to the sunset bid since 2005. And whereas security ambassadors are deployed on bicycle and along foot along Santa Monica Boulevard, Sunset Boulevard, and Melrose Avenue, they also patrol alleyways and city parking lots. And Block by Block security ambassadors are proactive, welcoming, and continually engage with the members of the public. They get to know West Hollywood's neighborhoods and assist in providing an extra level of support. And Block by Block works in collaboration with the West Hollywood Sheriff's Station and sheriff's deputies to identify and address a wide variety of quality of life issues. And Shay Gibson has been the Block by Block operations manager in West Hollywood since 2019, since joining the company as a hospitality ambassador in Santa Monica in 2013. He has received multiple promotions and continues to be a valued member of the West Hollywood team. And community safety is a top priority for the city of West Hollywood, and we thank the Block by Block security ambassadors for being an integral part of this effort. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of West Hollywood hereby recognizes the Block by Block security ambassadors for their service to the City of West Hollywood and residents, businesses, and visitors.
Thank you. Do we?
So on behalf of the security ambassadors, I want to say thank you again for this as well. They are dedicated to making sure that, doing the best we can to make sure that the citizens feel safe here in collaboration with the Sheriff Department. I didn't mention that last time, but that's super, super important. We do have a great relationship with them as well as the Fire Department, so I would love to see that nurtured and continue to grow. But again, on behalf of the security ambassadors, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, and with that, now we will move to public comment. Madam City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Our first speaker this evening is Steve Martin. Steve Martin, please come up and you will have 2 minutes to provide public comment.
Testing. Steve Martin, West Hollywood. Yes, I want to thank Councilmember Erickson for sponsoring the Transgina Diaries. That's going to be fun. And Mayor Lord Meister for the Anti-Semitism Summit. But also I want to thank all of you for honoring Shay and Block by Block. I'm going to have to speak out of order because I've got a bunch of things to do to get ready for National Night Out tomorrow. But I do want to say, we seem to be kind of digging ourselves out of a hole with the block by block, which is unfortunate. And I keep telling friends and residents about what a great service they've provided to us over the years on the east side. And because a lot of people in Center City and the west side haven't developed that relationship because we haven't had the deployment, I've encouraged the neighborhood watch groups, but also I'm hoping that council and our public safety office can work closely with the neighborhood watch groups to integrate block by block into the community on that side of town. Because we on the east side have had years, and they've come to our meetings, listened to us, and been incredibly accessible. And they can be very, very, very valuable. They certainly made our neighborhood and my street more safe. So that would be my suggestion. Also, thank you for the monkeypox public forum. And you guys must have done something right about raising hell about the county response to monkeypox, because I did notice this weekend there were 2 gay venues that were doing monkeypox vaccinations. So thank you for raising some hell.
Thank you, Steve. Our next speaker this evening is Lynette Sutter. Lynn, please come up and you will have 2 minutes. Lynn will be followed by Michael Vojkolevich.
Last city council meeting, I spoke about how Mr. Big Bucks Heilman didn't faze the founders. They knew the March election scheduling was a rigged conclusion, and Mr. Big Bucks Heilman, with his narcissism, would damage the local gay community, the national gay community, and the worldwide gay community. But it was a marvel to observe. One day I was reflecting on the change that had happened because of Black Lives Matters and the incredibleness of Confederate statues being torn down, and it hit me like a bolt of lightning. The founders had lived long enough to see statues of Hitler torn down, Stalin, demagogues and dictators worldwide. The statues of this white boy-only history will be torn down by the diversity of who we gay people are. The news has talked about West Hollywood in a way that was very negative for decades. And with what's happened with one sheriff being maybe, and the worldwide news, I'm going to go down the road of history and explain the damage that Mr. Heilman did in all of these decades in terms of how we have been perceived by the news. And thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn. Our next speaker this evening is Michael Vojkolevich, to be followed by Danny Hang.
Good evening. The name is Michael Vojkolevich. For the second time in less than a year, a soap dispenser along with soap has been donated to a Weho property. Installed today, location is within newly reopened Detroit Community Garden. Tomorrow should find additional first aid kit also donated. As this past week saw a Detroit community gardener coming across a brown widow spider, similar to, but not as aggressive or as poisonous as the black widow species, it's regrettable that the Public Safety Commission for West Hollywood continues to focus its attention upon those more privileged, more wealthy, more likely a visitor or tourist over actual resident living within the city. It is more likely the permanent resident will find themselves unexpectedly injured at any of the parks, as well as other facilities, recreational or otherwise. Not certain but there's no recollection for any stats ever having been cited during a public safety commission for injuries sustained within public facilities that may be deficient in some way or not. Instead, it is the lost cell phone of those having capacity for overly high-priced drinks, often in conjunction with combination of drugs prescribed, legal, and illicit, which appears the commission's focus. It is not the everyday resident who gets trapped inside a pitch-black elevator cab for nearly an hour and thus suffers physical trauma to the heart, or the resident accidentally injured upon playground, pool, basketball, or tennis court, or even urban gardeners suffering wound by tool or puncture by one of the many insects in existence. For clarity's sake, one is not calling the reinstated Detroit garden as unsafe. Instead, one stands here wondering why other community gardens provide certain basic common sense amenities, and this city once again refuses, just as it has done in years past. In closing, should anyone find themselves in the neighborhood of Detroit, Lexington, and Formosa tomorrow evening, please take a look and see the community and the creativity that has been fostered, all without the dependency on a certain letter from the alphabet or a selected color or colors from the spectrum. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Our next speaker is Danny Heng, to be followed by Kelly Clift.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. My name is Danny Heng, and I'm a business license commissioner, but I'm speaking tonight as a resident of West Hollywood. I didn't speak at last month's council meeting, but I wanted to express my continued support for Mr. Shea Gibson. Mr. Gibson is a valued member of Block by Block leadership who has performed his job well with commendations. I personally want to thank Mr. Gibson for his service to the city, and congratulations to Shea on your award. It's well deserved. I want to express my support for the proposed Block by Block budget. Block by Block adds an additional layer of neighborhood security and comfort to residents and visitors to the city. I have personally seen Block by Block keep a watchful eye out in Boys Town and escort people when asked. Thank you for the additional layer of security and support that Block by Block provides. On a personal note, I want to share with Council that I have some friends in the Weho Heights area that express that they would like to see an increased presence in Block by Block in their neighborhood. It would be nice to see an expansion of Block by Block kiosks and footbeat patrol in other neighborhoods of our city as well. I want to thank Council for engaging Block by Block to help move unattended scooters. This would greatly help some of our disabled community members who might not be able to maneuver around scooters that might be in their way on sidewalks. Lastly, I wanted to express my support for the city's co-sponsorship in staging the Trans Vagina Diaries for the first time in person at Council Chambers on November 5th and 6th to lead up to Transgender Awareness Week and the Transgender Day of Remembrance. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Our next speaker is Kelly Clift, to be followed by Carrie Baldwin.
Good evening, City Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak. As you stated, my name is Miss Kelly Clift, and I'm speaking on issues of concerns from members of the 4 members of the Council, City Council. I say 4 instead of from. I, unfortunately, am a severe victim of crimes, and I have been trying to purchase West Hollywood United Church of Christ, and it used to be West Hollywood Presbyterian Church, 7350 Sunset Boulevard. Now, it was simple purchase from my settlement money as being a severe victim of crimes. That's all it was. The pastor decided he has to bring in women to defame me, to try to trap me. And there was no reason for that. It's a small church in a very small office on the same property, and I will be running my ministry, Kelly A. Clift Ministries. I will not be giving out food and clothing. It's a ministry, but it's a ministry that will help people more than you, City Council members, will ever know. My father, Walter R. Clift, was murdered in a convalescent center, senior citizen man, murdered in the city of Inglewood Convalescent Center. Los Angeles Police Department, constant complaints. I complained to City Council, Los Angeles City Council, constant complaints. Walter Clift was murdered. They made sure he was out of what's considered Los Angeles, murdered him in the city of Inglewood. I just want to remind you, I'm a Christian woman. I am just as firm about my belief as other people are in this community. I have settlements coming from Queer Nation, and I'm looking forward to those settlements. There's no reason to defame me. There's no reason to set me up and trap me, as Los Angeles Police Department has done. Now, you will find out the truth when it becomes public. I've had lawsuits. Lawsuits have been altered, and I'm seeking justice. But I want you to know, as a property owner in West Hollywood, Kelly A. Cliff Ministries, it will be a benefit to the city of West Hollywood. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and have a safe and blessed evening. Salvation, John 3:16 in the Bible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly?
Thank you.
Kelly? The church you mentioned is in the city of Los Angeles.
Thank you.
So, and that's Mitchell Farrell's district, so not in the city of West Hollywood. It may have our name, but it's not under West Hollywood's jurisdiction. It's the city of LA. They just use our name. So you might want to reach out to Mitchell Farrell's office, and maybe Andy or someone in the back could make sure you have all that information so you can get connected to the right local government.
Thank you. And the fact that it does say West Hollywood, I still would like to invite you, when I take possession of the property, Kelly A. Cliff Ministries, I still would like to invite West Hollywood City of Council. Thank you very much for the information. I will be reaching out to him.
Thank you, Kelly. Our next speaker this evening is Carrie Baldwin, to be followed by Jackie Steele.
Good evening, council members. First, I want to celebrate that tomorrow is National Night Out and encourage everyone to come. It's time to get back to seeing our neighbors in person. I also wanted to thank the council, and in particular, Councilmember Erickson, for the Monkeypox Forum. It was incredibly insightful, and it's actually helping me in my day job, so thank you very much. On item 4A, WeHo Pride, I thought the events were fantastic this year. I do have one recommendation. Christopher Street used to have a volunteer program that people from all over the community could participate in and support the parade and other activities. I'd really like to see JJLA incorporate that to allow the opportunity for the community, boards and commissions to gather together to support the parade and other events. On item 4D, block by block, this item I generally support. We started out with the financial equivalent of 5 sheriffs, or $1.65 million. Now that that's gone back to block by block for pricing, we're at $1.95 million. If this was meant to be a budget exercise to provide more safety and security in a budget neutral fashion, it's now not that anymore, and I think that needs to be addressed. Overhead, whether it's the sheriff's department or a block by block, is part of pricing, so 1.65 should equal 1.65. And then the proposed resource budget leans heavily on the west side and the east side. I forwarded you all this evening or afternoon crime statistics. City Center has as much, if not more, crime occurring than the east side. Things that will happen: 100% more likelihood for people living in City Center to have vehicle burglary, 20% higher property and home burglary, highest rate of arson in the city, and they're equal in assaults and burglaries to the east side. So City Center needs to be more appropriately represented. I'd also like to speak on behalf of Shay. Shay, I give you full support. I haven't seen you. It's nice to see you. And mention something that I'm seeing in our community that's deeply disturbing. And I hope now that we're starting to come back together in council chambers, this changes. Online, people are mean, especially when they're anonymous. I think people forget that people have feelings and that we all really do our best and that we all really need to show some gratitude and understanding for each other on good and bad days. And in general, we need to be more tolerant of each other and accept each other's views, drawing appropriate lines when people are nasty and hatred gets involved. So I just wanted to say that and make sure that I put myself on record saying I'm hopeful that as we get together more, that will happen more naturally. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Our next speaker this evening is Jackie Steele, to be followed by Adam Darvish.
Good evening, Council. Welcome back, Councilmember Horvath. It's good to see you up there again. There are some other Pride items and things that I'll speak on a little bit later, but I wanted to just, although I am a Public Safety Commissioner, I just wanted to speak as a community member and a resident tonight. A lot of what I've seen in recent times has become so hateful. It is okay to have passionate conversations. It is okay to disagree. It is we all here have disagreed several times, right? But what we're seeing now actually does affect the safety of our community, the LGBTQ community, women in this community, and certainly people of color in this community. And so what is not okay is hate speech. What is not okay is threatening people. These are civil servant positions. These people are not here making yacht money. No one here is doing anything of that nature. Everybody up on this dais is, including the wonderful David Wilson, is committed to this city, and we're all here for the same reason. And so when we see things like, I'm going to use triggering language, but we're all adults, and since these women are faced with this on a regular basis, we can all suck it up and handle hearing it. When I'm seeing Horvath spelled with a W, that's misogyny. And I don't think I should have to explain that, but I just did, so now it's done. When I see someone wishing sexual assault on multiple female council members or female identified, that is misogyny, that is dangerous, that is threatening because of a budget disagreement, because of any disagreement. Trying to dismantle and attack Black community members and leaders like the wonderful Shay Gibson over a budget conversation is outrageous. And every single person on that dais has a responsibility, including D'Amico. Hi, John D'Amico. Everybody has a responsibility to stand up against hate. Every one of you, everyone currently campaigning, everyone on a board and commission, we have a responsibility to say this is not the way. We can disagree. We can have passionate disagreements. We can be on different sides of different conversations and come back again. We cannot allow misogyny, homophobia, accusing former council members of pedophilia. It is outrageous. Black community members, Black folks have been murdered over some of these accusations. Queer men, gay men have been murdered over this language and these accusations. It's not a game. It may be a comment section to you, but these are lives, and we are a community. So we have to find a way to pull ourselves out of that and out of whatever national mental health crisis is encouraging this behavior and not embolden it. Stand against it, stand for all of these folks doing their jobs, honoring their commitments, disagree with them, let them have it. I will support you in that. But do it in a way that doesn't physically harm any of our community. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jackie. Our final speaker in chambers this evening is Adam Darvish, and that will be followed by speakers in Zoom.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Meister, Mayor Pro Tem Shine, and council and staff. Got my own timer. I don't see one on the screen. I'm here tonight talking about safety on our streets, as I have been in the past. I feel that residents in this city deserve to feel safe on the streets. Our older adults, our residents with disabilities, our cyclists. I know that some work is being done on our main street, not yet residential streets that bike lanes, and then our residents that are simply in their home or in their yard, either sleeping at night and having to deal with cars speeding right by the windows and in fear of accidents or car entering their home, which was my case. I know that we have mechanisms in the city from what I've seen the last 2 years. There are pieces, but I don't really see, I can't visualize sort of a kind of coordinated effort. So I am asking that we would have a street safety committee or advisory board and have community involved in that. I don't feel having quality of life for residents once or twice on the agenda is enough. I'm asking that to be a focus on the agenda. We have a lot of cultural celebrations, which is great. We have a lot of business-related issues on the agenda, but I feel as a resident that has been so outspoken for 2 years, I don't feel that we're there yet, and I'm seeing over and over things that need to be improved. That's an opportunity that's everywhere, I know that, but we need to do better as a city. I take pride in the city, I take pride in all of you, and I believe in all of you, and our staff are wonderful compared to many other cities. I just feel that we need to do better and greater. I wanted to thank Lieutenant Mulder and his staff too for what they've done for me personally in the last 2 years, and the engagement and being available on the cell phone. So thank you so much, and I have a thank you for Mary Marshall for item 2K that's a written thank you.
Thank you, Adam. We'll now move to the speakers we have in Zoom, and we do have one speaker that requires translation, so we will provide extra time.
Our first speaker this evening on Zoom is Jay Marcus. Jay, you will have 2 minutes. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Hello, am I unmuted now?
Yes, Jay, go ahead.
Fantastic. Hi, I'm Jay. I'm a West Hollywood resident. I wanted to vent for a little second, because what's a good public comment without a little venting? And also ask some questions. Like many of your constituents in one of the largest queer communities in the world, I am frustrated and angry and annoyed and a little scared about monkeypox and the lack of vaccines. I saw your council agenda today, and forgive me if I missed it, but I didn't see the word monkeypox mentioned even once. And I'm a little bit baffled by that, again, in one of the biggest queer communities in the country, that this isn't agenda item number 1. It feels like, just generally, I'm so frustrated by the lack of information, by conflicting information, by having to get information passed on to random people on social media, and just sort of the utter sense of helplessness. I know, thanks to Councilmember Erickson, you all hosted that forum last week, and that's fantastic. I ended up watching it online today, and it was great. There was a lot of great information in there, and I was so excited to hear about the mobile vaccine clinic coming in August. I just wish I'd heard about it, and it seemed like maybe a lot of people didn't hear about it because it didn't seem like it was that full. It also might not be the target demo that would attend a 2-hour forum. And I guess I'm hoping that you all can communicate a little bit better. Text messages, emails. It feels like I should be getting all of that like twice a week. And I don't think I've gotten anything from West Hollywood communicating what's gonna happen. Because right now, we're just all frustrated. And even if it's not information that we can use, like tomorrow, get your vaccine here, even if it's upcoming, at least we'll know. At least we'll know that something is happening. I'm also curious, a few questions, if I may. If you're planning to declare a public health emergency in the city, if you are banging it down the doors of the federal government, what has the response been? And will you be plastering the bars and bus stations with information about monkeypox?
Thank you, Mr. Marcus. Your time is up.
Jay, you might want to stay tuned for our council member comments because we're going to have a lot to announce for you.
Great.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Isela Ramos, followed by Ronald Bermudez. Isela, you'll have 2 minutes. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
I'm going to be speaking on 1B, general public comment.
Go ahead, Isela.
Hi, my name is Isela Ramos, and I am a member of United Here Local 11. I work as a housekeeper. Tonight I am speaking to support the City Council recent decision to relocate funding in order to provide unarmed safety ambassadors for the community. As you may know, the son of one of our members, Andres Guardado, was shot 5 times in the back and killed by a sheriff's deputy 2 years ago. We have been standing with the family to demand accountability for his death and from the sheriff. We stand in full support of the council vision is to keep the community safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello?
Was that your last?
Can you hear me? Did you hear the last comment?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So my vision is to keep the community safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Isela. Our next speaker is Ronald Bermudez, followed by Ramona Partida. Ronald, you'll have 2 minutes. Please press star 6 to unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Ronald, go ahead.
Okay, hi. My name is Ronald. I'm going to be speaking on item 1B. So my name is Ronald. I'm a member of Unite Here Local 11. I work as a bellman, and I'm calling because I stand in support of the City Council's recent decision to reallocate funding in order to provide unarmed safety ambassadors for the community. As a union activist, we participate in picket lines and other forms of peaceful protest. We're trained on de-escalation techniques and other ways of ensuring nonviolence. We work collaboratively with the labor detail at LAPD, who are also trained in these techniques and do not need to resort to weapons or violence at our demonstrations. This is one example of how successful an armed security can be, and we support the council's decision to incrementally move in this direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronald. Our next speaker is Ramona Partida. Ramona, por favor, oprima estrella 6. Tendrá 2 minutos.
Ok. Mi nombre es Ramona Partida. ¿Puede alguien traducirme?
Sí.
Ok. Mi nombre es Ramona Partida y yo soy miembro de United Local 11. Trabajo como cajera en un restaurante en West Hollywood. La reciente decisión del Consejo de la Ciudad de reasignar fondos para proporcionar embajadores de seguridad desarmados para la comunidad. Nuestra familia sindical ha experimentado un daño devastador a manos del Departamento del Alguacil de Los Ángeles, cuando el hijo de nuestro miembro Andrés Guardado fue asesinado por un oficial hace 2 años. Hemos estado exigiendo la responsabilidad del Departamento del Alguacil y apoyamos a la ciudad de West Hollywood mientras trabaja para mantener segura a la comunidad, al proporcionar más embajadores de seguridad desarmados. Muchas gracias.
Gracias. I will translate, Mayor. Good evening. My name is Ramona Partida. I'm a cashier in the city of West Hollywood. I'm calling today to support the council's decision to increase funding by block. We are also demanding LAPD, demanding LAPD to provide answers for the shooting that happened 2 years ago for Andrés Guardado. Again, supporting West Hollywood and their decision to keep the community safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mayor, our final speaker on Zoom this evening is Jamie Francis. Jamie, you will have 2 minutes. Please press star 6 to unmute yourself. Jamie, go ahead. You'll have 2 minutes. Mayor, I believe Mr. Francis fell off. Jamie, are you there? We'll move on, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Jamie can always speak at the end, public
Mayor,
comment at the end of the meeting.
I would also like to note for the record that due to an emergency, Councilmember D'Amico had to leave the meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we will start with council member comments. Who would like to begin? Councilmember Erickson?
I'm sorry, I'm here. I'd like to make a public comment.
Okay, let's let Jamie make his comment.
Thank you very much. I was somehow unmuted. Members of the council, I'm just calling to express my disappointment in the actions of appointed officials that you've appointed as commissioners. I feel that they have gravely, negatively impacted their roles by an overreach in power, as it's been viewed and brought negative attention and light to this city, how some have used their own political agendas. I witnessed it personally when I couldn't engage in public discussion about budgetary matters, later which I will talk about the housing. That was silenced and muffled because of actions of people you appoint. I'm very disappointed how they can reach and basically say that follow directives by people who work for the city, thinking that they're elected. They are unelected, and yet they behave otherwise. I'm very, very angry, and I don't think it's right that they can act and behave this way and have multiple platforms, multiple speaking opportunities, with undiluted power, unrestricted time constraints, like I have while speaking to you. I need this addressed, just like they had ethics oversight when it came to elections in this city, of how we had mailers and everything else. Why can't this be done to the commissioners? Why can they behave, have their political agendas, basically speak out against people and basically put them on shame in public, then go over the time limits that you give us, and yet they can speak for 3 minutes? That is unacceptable. I don't know how you allow it or why you allow it, but that has to stop. I mean, I don't know why we can't have what we did with the deputy system. You know, you have to look at how their behaviors, how they can be punished, or somehow be called out for their actions, because they take away from us residents. And they do it unscathed, with impunity, and they're impervious to consequences. I'd like this address, or at least the city council, to be aware of this. I do appreciate it.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie. Okay, council member comments. Councilmember Erickson.
Thanks so much, Madam Mayor. So I first want to thank Jay for calling in. I too share your frustration regarding monkeypox, but a lot has been done since last week's excellent town hall with the Los Angeles Blade right here in these chambers. And I want to thank Commissioner Baldwin and other members of the community that were in attendance. It is really my great privilege and honor, because of all that activism and the noise that we have made, is that starting Wednesday, there will be pop-up mobile vaccination center right here in the community meeting room next to the West Hollywood Library. That is incredible news to have it. And if you were at the town hall, you saw that 85% of the cases were around men who have sex with men, but specifically in SPA 4, which to those of you not in the public health language realm is right here in West Hollywood in our community. So it's really important that we have vaccination sites here in our community where a lot of the new cases are going up. A little bit about that, and I know we'll be sending out an official press release tomorrow from the city. Thank you, Joshua, for all of the hard work that you've been doing. It will, right now there's roughly 400 cases of monkeypox in LA County. So starting Wednesday, August 3rd, in the community meeting room from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., there will be a mobile vaccination site. It will also do COVID vaccinations as well. This is to provide monkeypox vaccinations daily and for a limited time for approximately 6 weeks. And right now we're hearing that the sites will be open from August 3rd through the 5th, August 8th through the 12th, August 15th through the 19th, August 22nd through the 26th, and August 29th through September 2nd. These are by appointment, and you need to meet all the qualifications still, as we are still aware that we are in short supply of vaccinations. So please make sure you're going to the LA County Health website on monkeypox. This is for people 18 and plus who meet the current eligibility, and it's subject to supplies. So this is really important. Governor Gavin Newsom most recently declared a health emergency over monkeypox. This will allow us, like other cities and states like New York, to continue to work with the federal government. But honestly, it's because of people like you, Jay, it's because of people in this room, and it's because of people who've been making their voices heard around this issue. And if we've learned anything throughout our history. It's that the city of West Hollywood, and that includes all of my colleagues here now, as well as Councilmember D'Amico, who will not silently let this ongoing global health emergency go without a response from one of the largest LGBTQ cities in this country. And that is a promise we have made to all of you, and I'm really proud and thankful for the city for within a week getting this set up with the county health department. And let me tell you, I have been a thorn in their side for quite some time. And well, that's our job to do that. So thank you to my colleagues for being those thorns with me. And I'm really happy to hear that even our county of Los Angeles should hopefully be following suit. And I know maybe Councilmember Horvath can talk more about that. So I do want to thank you, Jay, for that. And I did message you on Facebook during this meeting to let you know in case you did jump off real quick, but that's West Hollywood, and that's easily how we can get in touch with each other. In terms of meetings I've attended, I attended the Contract Cities Legislative Committee meeting, the LGBTQ elected officials convening by Victory Fund, the Free Iran World Summit, the Social Justice Task Force meeting, and the Monkeypox Town Hall event. Which I do want to thank Troy and the LA Blade and all of the hosts for being a part of it. Moving forward, there's some traffic enforcement to talk about Adam Darvish's comments that he rightfully so always advocates for. Thank you, Adam, for your commentary. But I have not seen traffic enforcement on Fountain for speeding for quite some time. I used to know the officer kind of by name that would be up there. Very nice. I've brought him donuts before, but you know, he's said no because I don't ask why I have donuts in my house in the morning. But ultimately, there has been a lot of speeding going on Fountain, and it is really unsafe, and so we need to see what enforcement we could get up there again. So it would be great, and I'm happy to bring coffee out to the sheriff's deputy if he needs to. I also want to see if Public Works or maybe Athens can relook at how we're doing bulky item pickups throughout the city. I routinely drive around and I'm on calls and I take pictures of bulky items, and I seem to be doing it a lot recently, and so I don't know if the Athens contract needs to be amended so that way they just pick up items off of the street without it being called in, or how it works. But these are quality of life issues that I think we all need to see more visibly taken care of, and I try to take care of the east side in my little own corner by sending in photos, but we all have a free accessibility aspect through the Weho app, and so it makes it really easy to do it. So maybe it's a citywide campaign again. You don't need to do a mailer because we don't need another mailer, but however these can be done and addressed more, and maybe amending the Athens contract since we're doing that to be more proactive if we need to, and you don't have to report back on, but I would like to see that happen more. I want to congratulate Leon on his proclamation and thank my two colleagues. I wasn't able to go that morning, but I hear it was wonderful. If Steve could maybe give us a WeHo playground update in his comments would be great. I would love an update on the drink spiking test strips. I know that we have some stuff coming forward with some updates, but I've been hearing that program's been very successful, and so how we can continue that up into the holiday season is something that I would like to see more. I've been getting some comments about the charging stations at Plummer Park not working, and so they're either not connected to the Wi-Fi or whatever's over there. So however those charging stations can be optimized, and then if staff could come around and talk about non-Tesla charging opportunities, because I'm hearing from a lot of residents that it's just for Teslas, whereas we have other charging capabilities for different cars. And then the last item I just really want to mention is I just really do want to highlight what Commissioner Steele said. I did not write this down, so I'm just going to speak off the cuff. No one up here ever deserves to get death threats. No one up here ever deserves to get told that they deserve to be sexually assaulted. And no one up here ever has the right, no matter what we do or say in a budget disagreement, to have some of the most horrific things I have ever heard about any of my colleagues ever said to them. That's your right. You want to say it. I was president of the ACLU board. I get it. I get free speech, but that is hate speech, and it is not protected. So I just want to remind people of that. My colleagues, regardless of where we ever are on any issue, are good, honest, decent people who care deeply for this city. I understand that we cannot always be on the same side of every issue. That's democracy. That's the beauty of our country, but that's the beauty of our community. And we all need to be reminded that when you write something horrific and when you say something that's poignant, like, I hope you get killed, which, by the way, several of us up here have been told since that budget decision, including myself. It is unacceptable and has no place in this city, lock, stop, and barrel, period, end of story. I also want to talk about how it doesn't end here with this budget conversation around police. Over the vaccination items, I was told when I posted a photo of my niece during Christmas time, a person hoped that she got raped by anti-vaxxers, and she is 6 years old. That's the type of environment this hate speech promulgates. West Hollywood is not home to that. We always disagree. We always say we're 36,000 residents with a couple 100,000 opinions. That's the best part about this city. But we have to remember that we're a community first. We're gonna disagree. But I can tell you it is a deep pleasure to serve with all of my colleagues, no matter where I am on any issue with them, and that I look forward to disagreements with them, because that's the beauty of why we do what we do up here. So I wanted to say unequivocally, because I know one of my colleagues is back, and unfortunately one of my colleagues had to step away, that I stand with each and every member of this council, and that all these issues will be reported to the sheriffs. They have been right now, and I hope and I pray that people will be prosecuted to the utmost extent of the law available. Your words have actions, your actions have meanings, and you will be held accountable. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Erickson. Councilmember Horvath?
Thank you. In addition to the state of emergency being declared by the governor today, I know that Supervisor Hahn is introducing a motion at the county tomorrow to declare a state of emergency in LA County to address the monkeypox epidemic that we're seeing. And I'm grateful to my colleagues and our staff, and as well as LA Blade and Weho Times and all of the partnering organizations that help to put on the town hall to address this issue in the community and to make sure that resources are here right in our 1.9 square miles, as well as available to everyone in the region. So thank you to everyone who's been leading the charge. We take this issue very seriously, and your health and your safety is important, and that's why we're doing this work. On item 2E, I want to note my abstention. For David Wilson, in your report, if you could let us know when the next update on the scooter program will be coming back to council. I know we routinely get emails, and I've also been asked by businesses at what point they might have an opportunity to comment on and participate in that. So if you could just give us an idea of what's going on with the scooter program in the city. I want to congratulate Tale of the Pup and Herb's Burgers on their recent ribbon cuttings and their presence in the community. We're excited to see you and support you and have you as part of West Hollywood. I also wanted to note that I participated in the Clean Power Alliance Legislative and Regulatory Committee meeting, the California Contract Cities Strategic Planning Session this past weekend, and the Free Iran World Summit. And I too want to echo the comments that have been made about the public discourse that's been happening in the city. We have the right to disagree. We have the right to have strong feelings, but we don't have the right to disrespect one another. We don't have to agree. We don't even have to, like each other, but we must, especially in this space, speak respectfully so we can conduct a discourse that is productive, meaningful, and reflective of what is worthy of this community. And I'm grateful that there are so many people who are passionate in raising this issue and calling it out for what it is. seeing the comments, sometimes after you've done this for a number of years, you can kind of become numb to them. But the things that have been said, especially recently, are horrific. And just because they are said routinely does not make them acceptable. We should not be desensitized to them. We should be recognizing how we are treating each other. And I think that Commissioner Baldwin was correct in identifying in her comments that we have all experienced trauma as a result of COVID, being separated from each other. We were told for a long period of time that if we got within 6 feet of each other, we would be at risk of killing each other. That does something to your psyche, and I think we're still understanding the harmful impacts and ramifications of that in terms of how we build community. And I hope that we can be a little bit kinder, a little bit gentler, a little bit more understanding. While yes, we seriously disagree, there's certainly room for that, and we must as a community in order to get the best decision making possible. But no one deserves to be spoken to or about in the ways that we've been seeing in this community. I respect the work that is done by everyone who serves this community, no matter what role they play. I'm grateful for the work that each and every person does in order to keep our community safe and supported. And that's what we need to focus on, is how we can work together as a community. And I'm really grateful that we're having this conversation. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I want to thank our public commenters this evening. With respect to Mr. Francis's comment, perhaps our city clerk can connect with him to let him know about our code of conduct and letting him know about the reasons for the minutes for public commenters. Our appointed officials are appointed directly by elected officials, and elected officials are all sitting here because we were voted in an election. And there's also appointed officials who are voted in at large, which means a majority of this council voted them in. These officials work very hard, appointed, at large, directs. They all work very hard. I was on the now LGBTQ Commission, almost Commission, Advisory Board, and on the Business License Commission. And the rewards are literally a $75 stipend per meeting, and there's multiple subcommittee meetings. These people are here doing this work from their heart, and they go through a process, an application process, an interview process, and it's really important to keep that in mind. This is a civil service for the betterment of the community, and disagreements are democracy, promote democracy. Disagreements are wonderful because there's 5 of us and 3 of us make a majority vote, hopefully 4 or 5, but 3-2 is a majority vote, and we often have done a great job since I've been on council, working together, giving our input, coming to compromises, and this is part of democracy. This is a part of being on city council. I want to echo the public commenters and thank Carrie Baldwin and Jackie Steele for bringing up a lot of the hate speech, and stand with all my colleagues up here. As a member of the LGBTQ community, I think probably all of us have, as children, been bullied in some way. And this is a culture that we in the community, being majority LGBTQ, always talk about changing. Stop bullying is really important. We have kids these days that are taught to not bully. And we want to make sure that our future generations grow up with a different consciousness, a consciousness of love, a consciousness of inclusion, and a consciousness of working together for a better world. we have gone through hell in a pandemic, and we are facing some incredibly difficult challenges bringing our community back together, dealing with mental health issues, dealing with helping our unhoused folks. There are so many into services and housing, dealing with the climate crisis. And then all of us up here have families. We have families, we have chosen families. And what I will say is, it's okay to disagree, but before you click type, you start typing some hate speech to someone because you're angry, just remember that what you want the future to be, and take some time to reflect. There are so many avenues to reach us. I know all of us here on council are very responsive. We meet with folks, people reach out to me and I make meetings with them. I'm so open to hearing from you all. You can come to the public meeting and speak. You have an opportunity to send in a public comment. It is your right to write a comment, write an op-ed. That is the beauty of America. And the ugliness is the sickness of adults bullying others, spreading hate, making threats. And that is absolutely hurtful, unacceptable, and something that we all as a community need to continue standing up for. And I really, really appreciate those that have stood up against this, and my colleagues here for doing the same. With regard to the monkeypox developments, I'm really happy. I will say again, something that I really have been advocating for, and I want to point out, is that the vaccines need to be expanded and really be inclusive of workers. Something we learned through the pandemic was that our frontline workers, people who were exposed really on the front lines, needed to get vaccinated and needed equipment to protect them. I've really been thinking a lot about the fact that this is a skin-to-skin contact. This is by skin-to-skin contact, you get monkeypox. So thinking of people who work at spas, massage therapists, hotel workers, folks that this spreads from a towel, from sheets. We have to help those folks and make sure the vaccine is expanded to include those workers, because this can have you out for 8 weeks. But there's no supplemental pay for these workers. And I will say again, I am so grateful that this council passed our wage ordinance, which lets workers accrue sick pay in the city of West Hollywood for these circumstances. And as our world continues to change, things like this are going to continue to happen. And I'm really glad we're changing a paradigm that reflects our changing world and reflects care for all. As far as charging stations, thank you, Councilmember Erickson, for bringing that up. I would also like to just specifically know who's maintaining our charging station. Is there a service that maintains them? How are they being maintained? So that's kind of the update I would like. And since our last meeting, I attended the Social Justice Task Force listening session, the West Hollywood AIDS Monument at Design for Dignity Conference, the July 21st Planning Commission meeting, the LA Blade Monkeypox Town Hall, the community barbecue hosted by West Hollywood Community Housing Corp at the building, the courtyard at La Brea. And I will say, after speaking to some folks that live there, I'd like to have staff reach out to our contact at McDonald's, our regional contact. Apparently, they were saying that there's customers honking their horns at night with loud music as they go through the drive-through. Perhaps we can talk to McDonald's about putting up a sign for their customers, letting them know there's people sleeping in the adjacent building and living there. Please keep your music down, keep the noise down at night, and please don't honk. And I want to thank everyone who came out to my Sips with Seppi event yesterday at Dialogue Cafe in Norma Triangle. Thank you to all who attended. It was wonderful. And I also want to really thank Block by Block for really having a good presence at the different events that I have attended, and being there to provide a strong show of protection. I really appreciate that. And so with that said, those are all my comments.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Since our last meeting, I attended the Social Justice Task Force listening session, the Tale of the Pub ribbon cutting, dialogue with the deputies, the Monkeypox Town Hall, and I want to thank the Blade and Councilmember Erickson for bringing that forward. It was extremely informative and important to raise that awareness among the community. Also attended the community barbecue at the courtyard on La Brea. I had the great pleasure of presenting a proclamation to Leon, the most fabulous barista, a 27-year employee of Big Gay Starbucks, and we're sorry to see that store close, but you can say hello to Leon at the Starbucks at the Target, the Gateway, where he is. I think he's already started making coffee. On the consent calendar, I just was really pleased with 2G, the request to designate the property at 8300 Sunset Boulevard, which is the standard as a local cultural resource. So I want to thank the Historic Preservation Commission for their recommendation to approve the nomination of the property as a local cultural resource. Item 2I, community education on cryptocurrency scams. I want to thank my colleagues for supporting that item. That item is direct staff to inform and educate the community on cryptocurrency scams and how to avoid them. Item 2K, the co-sponsorship of the Israeli American Civic Education Institute's Combating Anti-Semitism Summit. Again, I want to thank my colleagues for supporting this. This summit will be held at Congregation Kolami on August 25th, 2022 at 7 p.m., and all are welcome. For announcements, wanted to bring up, and I want to thank Esther Baum for giving us this information. Apparently, the food service company Lyons Magnus issued a voluntary recall for 53 beverage products over possible Chronobacter contamination. Products included in the recall include some branded products as Glocerna, Oatly, Stumptown, Intelligentsia, Aloha, Kate Farms, and Premier Protein. Anyone who has a recall product should dispose of it immediately or return it to the place of purchase for a refund. And you can get more information on the lionsmagnus.com website. Excuse me. Then also wanted to just announce again, National Night Out tomorrow, August 2nd. This is an event that happens throughout the country and is a way to gather, that we can gather on neighborhood streets in a show of unity against crime. Events such as block parties, barbecues, live entertainment, and more, and much, much more will take place throughout the city. And a complete up-to-date list of events, times, and event locations is available on the city's website at www.weho.org/NNO. I'll have my running shoes on and can't wait to see everyone and hope that, this is a beginning of us as a community just trying to have a better relationship with each other. And I want to thank Shay Gibson for coming today. I think just the fact that he came to our meeting is really wonderful, that he was here and felt that he could be here to receive his proclamation. I wish that someone would write about the positive aspect of what Shay has experienced as opposed to focusing on the negative, because his story is one where he changed his life. and he has become an asset to our community, to Block by Block, to our sheriff station, and working with the whole public safety division. And I just want to say congratulations to him for being able to do that. And now we will go to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. We will start with Steve Campbell providing an update on West Hollywood Park via Zoom, and then I will come back.
Hi, thank you, City Manager Wilson, and thank you, City Council. I'm Steve Campbell, the Director of Public Works. I'll share some good news. Actually, it's all good news. The playground, we finally received the parts that we've been waiting on. The contractor was actually out over the weekend working after hours to begin the surfacing repairs, and they made some excellent headway on that. The remaining parts should go in this week, and we'll finish up the surfacing repairs within the next week to 10 days, followed by the state mandated audit, which we should have the playground open in the next 10 days to 14 days. The ARC, the Aquatic and Recreation Center, is up and operating at about 70%, focused mainly on recreation programming, classes, all of the aquatics groups and talk classes and those type of things are up and operating. We expect the remaining portion, the 30% or so, which is mainly focused on facility rentals, to be kind of ramped up and be fully operational in the next few months, certainly by the end of the year. If there are any questions on that, I'd be happy to take those now or in the future.
Any questions? No.
Thank you, Steve. Just to respond to some of your comments. So the spring spiking test strips actually arrived at City Hall today. So we plan to distribute them, have a distribution event on August 22nd at 4:30, right before the nightlife safety meeting, the joint meeting with the council and the WAB and the Public Safety Commission. And so we will promote that event as we get closer. For the charging stations, so all of our existing charging stations are non-Tesla charging stations, the ones on the streets and the ones in the parking structures. The ones that is being newly built at the Sunset Spectacular, it's a Tesla station, but there's also will be non-Tesla chargers there as well. They are maintained by ChargePoint. We contract with them to maintain them. Unfortunately, like many other things, there's been supply chain issues, but we have made them aware of the broken ones in Plummer Park and other places. And I hope to have those corrected soon. As for the scooter update, we plan to come back to council at the September meeting. The staff has gone to the Transportation Commission and the Senior Advisory Board, and so we'll be providing their comments as part of the staff report that comes back in September. And I think that's it. We will reach out to McDonald's as well. Yes, we will work with Athens regarding the bulky item pickup as well. All right, a few announcements. We are continuing to hold our bystander intervention training. We held a training last month with 419 participants. So we're up to a total of 1,945 participants that have taken the training. We're also continuing our low-cost vaccination clinic in the parks for animal companions. We held one last month at Plummer Park with a total of 99 companions receiving vaccinations. National Night Out has been mentioned. I won't mention that again. The American Planning Association awarded West Hollywood with an award of merit for the 2022 Public Outreach Award for Finish the Line, and that was related to the Metro Rail outreach that the city did. Election is coming up in November. As of today, we've had 13 individuals pull nomination papers. The last day to file nomination papers is Friday, August 12th at 5 p.m. The deadline will be extended to August 17th at 5 p.m. if any of the incumbents do not file nomination papers. And just lastly, so the council's direction last year in November was that we work on a city's community safety and well-being strategy. Staff has been working on that strategy since that time. Community safety and well-being is a term that refers to the ideal state of a sustainable community where everyone is safe, has a sense of belonging, has opportunities to participate, and where people can meet their needs for education, healthcare, food, housing, income, and social and cultural expression. This approach expands the focus beyond crime prevention or routine policing and includes well-being and broader issues of community safety and security as a public good. At the August 15th council meeting, staff will be delivering an initial report related to the city's strategic priorities. Work in the first phase was aimed to define what community safety and well-being means for West Hollywood, how the city and its community partners have worked together over the last year to address community safety and well-being challenges, and how the city can enhance its current approaches to reduce crime and ensure resources are being targeted where and when they are needed most. So that will be on the next agenda for August 15th, and we will be doing outreach to promote that so the public can come out and talk about it. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, David. And can we ask the communications department to kind of rev up the communications on monkeypox, especially when we know when the mobile units will be riding through town? Okay.
Something out tomorrow on the vaccination clinic that starts on Wednesday.
Great. Okay, and with that, we will look at the fiscal impact with the addition of items 4B, 4E, and 5A to consent calendar.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, the fiscal impact on tonight's consent calendar is $6,320,767 in expenditure, $0 in revenue, and $2,100 in waived fees. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Mayor Meister, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Shine. Councilmember D'Amico has left the meeting. Councilmember Erickson.
Yes.
Councilmember Horvath.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Shine.
Yes.
Mayor Meister.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Great. Okay. We have no public hearings tonight, so we will move to unfinished business. Item 4A, WeHo Pride 2022, initial post-event debrief report. And we have staff with us. Hi, Megan.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. I'm Megan Reith, Event Services Supervisor. Yvonne Corker, Director of Community Services, Cleo Smith, Event Services Manager, and Jeff Consoletti, CEO and Principal of JJLA are also here this evening. Tonight's staff report was intended to provide a preliminary debrief following the inaugural WeHo Pride, as well as receive input or feedback from the council. The focus of the report is WeHo Pride Weekend, which was held June 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And the weekend's program included Dyke March, Women's Freedom Festival, the WeHo Pride Community Street Fair, the Out Loud Raising Voices concert, and the inaugural WeHo Pride Parade, which was broadcast by KTLA. The weekend's festivities attracted thousands to the city. And the larger umbrella of WeHo Pride also included the annual LGBTQ Arts Festival, which included 40 days of LGBTQ programming, as well as an application process through which community groups or organizations were able to apply for funding to produce their own LGBTQ-focused events throughout the month of June. Through this process, 10 independent events were funded. Following the event, feedback received from the community, stakeholder groups, and partner agencies was that the inaugural event was very successful. Again, this evening's overview was intended to be preliminary, and staff is continuing to schedule debrief meetings and is working to finalize financial information related to the event, and we'll return to the City Council September meeting with a comprehensive post-event report. But this evening, we're happy to answer any questions that the council may have or receive any input.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Because we do have public speakers. So why don't we hear from public speakers first?
Thank you. Our first speaker on this item is Adam Darvish, to be followed by Scott Schmidt.
I think we were on the park.
On
related to
the
the
Pride
park.
item,
I'm sorry?
West Hollywood Pride.
I didn't put in my comment was for the park, the next agenda item.
The park item moved to consent.
I'm sorry?
The park item moved to consent.
Okay, so I have no.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Adam,
Scott
you can speak at the end, at the public comment at the end if you'd like.
Scott Schmidt will be followed by Jackie Steele.
Hi, good evening. Scott Schmidt, resident of West Hollywood and executive director of Emerald Village West Hollywood. We participated in WeHo Pride by hosting our own events, the Queen of the Emerald Village Drag Contest, and we had a booth as part of the community groups at the festival. First, I want to give a big shout out to the then named Code Enforcement Division and Danny Rivas for their help to shut down some illicit cannabis sales that were going on inside the festival, as well as deliveries, including products that are not tested and then even try to make them look legitimate. But I think as we look forward to next year and looking at that September staff report, it's important to realize that it's going to happen. And as the licensed cannabis businesses in West Hollywood, we want to work with you to make sure that it happens in a safe and responsible way. And so a couple things that we need to be working on in the months ahead is one is that cannabis special events policy. I understand it's coming in the fall, and hopefully we work on that in conjunction with planning the footprint for the 2023 festival, because we'd love to be partners with the city going forward and keeping the good vibes that we have in the cannabis community going strong. So thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott. Our next speaker is Jackie Steele, to be followed by Chris Baldwin.
Hey there, don't worry, it's not that serious, just my memory is done. First, I want to congratulate city staff, JJLA, and all the partners and vendors who made this Pride a success. Pride was a challenge across the country this year, and I think we met out those challenges really beautifully and had a very successful Pride. Earlier, I had suggested a poll of grassroots organizations and our local businesses regarding Pride, past, present, and future, and I'd love to see that happen. There are a few things I think maybe that were left out of the initial debrief, although I know it's the initial, so I'd love to see it included. One is a robust debrief of the Dyke March with the organizers. I didn't see feedback from the Transgender Advisory Board or the LGBTQ Plus Advisory Board, and I know they both met and spoke about this at the previous meetings. I love a robust debrief and key learning exchange with the grassroots organizations. Many of them did WeHo Pride and LA Pride back to back, so there's a lot of great crossover conversation to be had and tremendous feedback to be shared. A community policing and safety conversation. There were cell phone thefts and pickpocketing at both events, LA Pride, WeHo Pride. And so there's some crossover there. I've been having dialogue with LGBTQ officers and community members and Captain Mulder, so thank you so much. I appreciate the dialogue and I look forward to more. I encourage City Council to also bring back the Pride Subcommittee and engage LGBTQ community stakeholders to have a full debrief as well. I think that's important. And then I'd love to just see for Pride all the LGBTQ board members, commission members, and our wonderful staff invited to all city events, parties, and especially on our floats. Pride should not have gatekeeping. While we appreciate our allies, Pride should be run by the queer community, for the queer community, and for all of West Hollywood residents to enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Our next speaker is Chris Baldwin.
Good evening, everyone. Mayor Meister, Mayor Pro Tem Shine, and distinguished members of City Council. I'm Chris Baldwin, founding president and current vice president of the L Project. It is my honor to address this body tonight, and on behalf of the L Project, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude and appreciation for granting us the opportunity to produce Women's Freedom Festival as part of WeHo's historic inaugural Pride celebration. Our show was amazing, and our events were totally free, and that's because of the city, the incredible talent, the production team, volunteers, and supporters. Now, as you guys dive into the numbers with respect to the attendance on Friday night at the Robertson Lot, we'd like to recommend the following steps be taken for next year to ensure maximum attendance and visibility for the women's community. 1, move major Pride events to Saturday and Sunday. 2, add more free ticketed donation or low-cost events. Wages for workers have wages for workers have been stagnant for over 30 years, but one WeHo Pride promoter was allowed to charge up to $5,000 for their tickets while calling themselves the official Women's WeHo Pride event. Finally, please add more money to the marketing budget for queer women events co-sponsored by the city. And in closing, on a personal note, as a Black lesbian, I have spent my entire life living in a society that is quick to completely ignore or dismiss me. I'm hyper aware that I live in an American caste system based on race and gender, so I was deeply disappointed to witness the micro-invalidations of the L Project through the actions of vendors and producers charged with the oversight of the production process, and the specifics of those details which we can discuss at our next call. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you. I don't have anyone signed up to speak in Zoom, so that's it for public comment.
Okay. Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Who would like to begin? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I want to say that as far as, let's get that public safety subcommittee meeting, actually, I'm sorry, not public safety. Pride subcommittee meeting happening with Councilmember D'Amico, so we can engage community stakeholders. I'd love to hear from them, and I think that would maybe be a more lengthy meeting that is appropriate for the subcommittee. So let's schedule that before the extensive debrief, please. As far as Dyke March, one thing I will say is I think it's really important to also make sure it starts later. The early start time is very difficult for women who often work multiple jobs, and especially queer women, to get to, and I think that would be helpful. Another thing I want us to really think about is there is a development that is going to be starting in that parking lot, I'm hoping at least by next year, so we have to think ahead about what the footprint is going to transform to for next Pride. As far as moving major Pride events to Saturday, Sunday, that is something that I think can be definitely be discussed. I want to also address this language around official WeHo Pride. I did see that happening with a sponsor of JJLAs, and what we need to do as a city in our contract with JJLA is absolutely make sure something like that does not happen again. Period. That's it. So whatever we need to do to be very specific that that causes confusion, it actually undermines all the good work staff did to get the grants to actual official WeHo city sponsored events. So that's going to be really important. And we are going to be having our LGBTQ Commission formed in January, I believe. So let's make sure that they are really involved extensively with the Pride Subcommittee that council will have, and make sure that's part of the reason why we voted to turn the advisory board into a commission. So let's make sure that is prioritized right up top, since that's going to be only 6 months for them to be included in those deliberations.
Thank you. Councilmember Erickson?
Thank you so much. I do want to start off by thanking Meg, Yvonne, Cleo, all of the city staff that were involved. I said it to Cleo right before we took off on the float, and I said, I can't believe you pulled this off in the time that you pulled it off in, but you all were extremely capable and really listened to what the community said, what we said, and obviously it's the first year, so nooks and crannies need to be all worked out, and we'll get them all worked out moving forward. But for the first WeHo Pride, and I've said this a lot, it would have seemed like we were putting WeHo Pride on, and this is no shade to the other people, that LA Pride, but you would have think WeHo Pride would have been in its 10th or 15th year by how truly amazing it was. And that is because of all the work that you did, as well as JJLA. And so I was extremely impressed. All I heard all weekend was positive feedback and comments, and of course there's always room to grow. I agree with the Robertson aspect, and we'll have to figure out what that looks like as the development moves forward there. I wish the stage would have kind of been facing Robertson, and then everything kind of would have spilt out there. But these are the meetings that we have to have with the queer community, with our groups, our affinity groups. They're really important conversations that we can have, and starting them early allows us to kind of work all this stuff out. Planning is helpful. I would like to ask my colleagues, and I did talk to Councilmember D'Amico about this earlier, to see, as was in the staff item, if we would be willing to give direction to Meg and Cleo and Yvonne to come back with a long-term contract for Jeff Consoletti to plan this out for years to come. I was very impressed, and to state that he pulled off a miracle, I think is actually an understatement of what we actually all were able to achieve. So I would like to see the city invest long-term in this, to not only look at what this will be like in 2023, but in 2024 and 2025. I think 3 years gives people to plan it out. As someone who worked at the city and worked in these divisions before, that type of contract is similar to how we can look it out, and then maybe we can work out all of what would go into that through community groups and meetings and everything. But I think we all, I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I think we all were really impressed with what Jeff pulled off. And I think giving him that runway to now take this vision that we had and make it even grander will only benefit the city in the long run. So and we can have that conversation up here. Additionally, I totally agree with the timing of the Dyke March. As someone who's always gone, like all of us, it would be great if it to start at 6 or 7. It's lighter out at that time still. Obviously, I think the commenters from Scott from the Emerald Village with how we get the cannabis policy back up is super important, as they are an integral part to our community and our business community, so how we can continue to move forward there. And I also just wanted to state that I really did feel that our business community and everyone worked so well together for this. So I am looking forward to seeing how this extensive report and the economic impacts can be seen a little bit more, and how we can draw that out. Obviously, coming into effect for inflation and everything else are going to be important compared to where we'll be in 2023 and 2024. And we'll have to take that into, I think, consideration. But I do think it's time for us to start planning for the years to come, and I think that involves JJLA being here with us for that long-term commitment. I don't know if Jeff wants to do it. I hope he does. But ultimately, I was extremely impressed. And again, I just want to thank the members of the public and the communities immediately surrounding West Hollywood Park. I know it can be a little loud sometimes, and there's traffic and everything, but it was really great to see all of the beautiful aspects of our community out there on Santa Monica Boulevard. So those are all my comments, Mayor.
Thank you. We do have another speaker, Melissa.
Yes, Mayor, we have one speaker in Zoom.
We'll take them now, quickly.
Ms. Tiger, you're up next. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council and City staff. There are many instances in general, from reports to debriefs, in which our LGBTQ+ community, the LGBTQ+ Advisory Board, and the Transgender Advisory Board are simply not heard. In regards to item 4A, WeHo Pride 2022 debrief, I urge City Council to foster feedback from our LGBTQ community, people who actually attended Pride, from the LGBTQ+ Advisory Board and the Transgender Advisory Board. This fostered feedback should be transparent and include detailed minutes from advisory board meetings in which Pride was discussed, and also could include subcommittees, town halls, polls that encourage conversation, and perhaps presentations to City Council. On a final note, I do think that it is too soon to call for a long-term contract for WeHo Pride. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Horvath.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to acknowledge what a great inaugural event this was. I was especially pleased to see the conscious intention of the free event experience. The quality of it was superb, and I was glad to see that whether you paid to go into the ticketed event or you enjoyed all of the free festival festivities, there was a quality experience for everybody, and I know that that will continue to improve, and I'm grateful to everyone who invested in making that happen. I too wanted to echo the comments that were just made, that I'm glad that we have the LGBTQ Commission that will be focused on the issues of Pride and everything related to that event, along with our council subcommittee. I want to make sure that the Transgender Advisory Board continues to have a voice in that work as well. And I think that's everybody's intention. That I'm supportive of a long-term contract with JJLA to ensure that there's continuity, that there's an opportunity for, should that be appropriate. I know that there are rules regarding how we contract with vendors, but I think that JJLA demonstrated to us on a shorter timeline what they were able to pull off, and with a longer runway, they will be able to do even more in collaboration with our community to make sure that voices and representation continue to be reflected in the work. One item that did come up to me both in WeHo Pride and our participation in LA Pride was related to the floats and city officials on floats. With regard to the city float, I know that in the past there's been an opportunity for city officials to participate, and there were some longtime residents and officials who were not afforded the opportunity to be represented. So I just want us to revisit, and perhaps that can happen in some of our deliberations, how we select people to be on the floats, and making sure that all of the city officials are together, rather than, I believe the appointed officials float came hours later in the parade, and so it prevented people from being able to stay and actually participate. So if we could take a look at how that happens in the future, I think that would be great. I know the LA Pride float invitation came swiftly, and when it came to the council, I think it was going to be the mayor, her sister, and myself. I didn't think that was the most inclusive representation of our city, so I did ask that we have city officials who are members of the LGBTQ community in our city to be participating in that float, but hopefully there can be a better, more thoughtful process to make sure that there's inclusive representation on if we participate in a float in LA Pride in the future, to make sure that we're really thinking that through. Those are my comments, and I'll turn it to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Horvath. So first, I just want to say that I had very few complaints. That was just so great to not, we did have a couple, and it was mainly related to the loud bass, the thumping, and I think that this couple of people who had called us about it or emailed us about it were north of Santa Monica Boulevard, so that might be something just to look at for next year. I actually did not hear any complaints from West Hollywood West residents, and actually received quite a few compliments that the event was handled so well. So I want to thank staff. I want to thank Jeff and JJLA for that, because that's, it hasn't always been that way. So it's great to get those compliments, and especially for an event that was put together so quickly. One of my colleagues mentioned a couple of meetings ago that there were some complaints about the sheriff. So I just wanted to know a little bit more about this, because I didn't hear any complaints. And whenever I was around the location, I didn't see that, that there was any disruption. It seemed to me that the deputies were pretty low key and laid back. So I don't know if that was the complaint or not, but it would be good to know, so that, for next time. Lastly, I have to agree with Chris that the Friday night free event seemed not as well attended as it could have been. And so looking at it for a Saturday and Sunday event rather than beginning on Friday night might be the way to go. Maybe we just have the Dyke March and the bikes on Friday night, start a little later, and then have events starting the next day. But I did feel that space was not as filled as it could have been. One of the things Councilmember Horvath brought up, the parade. We might want to consider having a float for neighborhood watch groups to get active community people involved in the Pride Parade. And when I was mayor last, we had a couple of focus groups. This was after a Pride that was not did not go over as well as this one. So I think that maybe the subcommittee could possibly, and I don't know if you're still working on Zoom for the subcommittee, but maybe have a couple of evening meetings so that people can attend and have on the agenda, what went right, what went wrong, and what they would like to see for next year. And also as well going to the new commission and making sure that our Transgender Advisory Board is involved as well. And then regarding the contract, I would say that I would be open to looking at a 3-year contract. I think that that's reasonable. I don't know if that was exactly what Councilmember Erickson was thinking when he said long-term, but for me, 3 years is long-term enough. And I think that that gives some certainty to what JJLA is, wants to plan for the future. So if he is, open and interested in that, I think at least I would be open to that discussion, and Councilmember Erickson appears to be open to that discussion as well. So maybe that can be something that's brought up at the subcommittee meeting as well. And those were my comments. Just again, it was, it was a great event and especially for an event that did not have a lot of time to be organized. It was very well organized, and I thank you, staff, for everything you did. I know you were there every day, out there, making sure that everything went smoothly. So thank you for that. So if there are no more comments, I believe that you received the direction. Do you need anything else from us? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we will move on. Let's see, 4B has gone to consent, and we got a brief report from Steve Campbell. And now we will go to item 4C, small projects, affordable housing in lieu fee, and inclusionary requirement. And we have staff here. Take it away, Allison, and John Leonard, and Brian League.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. My name is Allison Bartle, and I'm the city's Project Development Administrator for Property Development. I'm also joined by John Leonard, who's the city's Economic Development Director, and our consultants, Janet Smithheimer from the Housing Workshop and Jessica Hitchcock from Urban Mass. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Jessica for a short presentation on the small projects in lieu fee update. Jessica, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. That's always a little embarrassing. All right. Thank you, Allison, for that introduction. My name is Jessica Hitchcock. I'm president of Urban Math. I'm joined also by Janet Smithheimer, and we're happy to be here to present our findings. I'll keep this short just to highlight the key points, and for more detail, you can refer to the full report. So City Council asked for an evaluation of the city's inclusionary housing policy for small projects, which is defined as projects with 2 to 10 units. The goal was to maximize affordable unit yield and to disperse affordable units throughout the city while maintaining project feasibility. I think this is especially relevant now, given the city's RHNA obligation. This slide summarizes our methodology. The key thing to note is as we were formulating policy options, we consulted with market rate developers who are active in West Hollywood to test cost assumptions so that the financial feasibility is reflective of what we're observing on the ground. And that's especially important given kind of the volatile cost environment that we're seeing. Some background: in West Hollywood, small and large housing projects are treated differently under the current ordinance. So small projects are subject to a lower inclusionary requirement, 10% instead of 20%. And as you'll see on the next slide, we tested various options to try to better align small projects to large projects. The graph on the right shows between 2016 and 2021, there were 47 small projects resulting in about 259 units. And this is really the distribution by project size. Here are the policy options we evaluated. Option A is similar to the current policy. You keep the current 10% set aside, but you have to build an affordable unit for a 10-unit project. Anything smaller is eligible to pay a fractional fee. Option B increases the set aside to 15%. So there is a must, which triggers a must build at 7 units. For projects with more than 7 units, you would have to build the unit and pay its applicable fractional fee. And option C is a 20% set aside, which triggers a must build at 5 units, plus the applicable fractional fee for anything larger than that. So for an 8-unit project, 1 unit would have to be affordable, and you would pay an extra $428,000 fee. A key factor unique to West Hollywood that impacted our financial analysis is that the city has a separate schedule for the maximum affordable rents and sales prices for the inclusionary program. So these are intentionally set low at about 30% AMI compared to 80% AMI in other cities. I think WeHo's policy is really laudable and important because it's very difficult to build extremely low and very low income units, especially for rentals. As you'll see in the next slides, though, there's a trade-off because deeper affordability means that while you're reaching those with greater needs, it can have an impact on feasibility and yield. So based on the financial analysis we ran, the current policy, option A and option B are feasible for small projects. Basically everything in green is feasible. Option C with a 20% set aside is borderline and infeasible in some cases, especially on the for sale projects, although there are tweaks that can be considered and we'll get into that soon. What we did next was to apply the different policy options to the universe of small projects that were actually built between 2016 and 2021 to show how many affordable units would have been created had these policies been in place, and how much in fractional fees the city would have collected. And so as you can see, there's a trade-off, right? Under the current policy, you're getting in lieu fees for the Housing Trust Fund, but no units. Option A would have yielded 3 affordable units. and only in 10-unit projects. Option B would have generated 16 affordable units and 15.7 million in fees. And option C, while it would have resulted in the most units, is also not feasible in all options. So 35 is actually kind of an overestimate. That said, this is a useful tool to consider the trade-offs between unit yield and fees for the Housing Trust Fund. The feasibility analysis did not end at the baseline because of the state density bonus. So shifting the policy to require a must-build unit on site will likely encourage developers to invoke the state density bonus, similar to what's already being observed for large projects. So between 2016 and 2021, 74% of large projects used the density bonus, compared to only 15% of small projects. The density bonus affects feasibility because by providing an affordable unit on site, developers are eligible for more market rate units. So let's use this example. Say you have a small parcel, it allows a base density of 7 units, and there's a requirement to build 1 unit, affordable unit on site. That project could be eligible for an additional 2 market rate units conservatively, bringing the total to 9 units as an example. So what are the policy implications? The first impact is that you start to get affordable units on site dispersed throughout the city in smaller projects. You also get more housing unit yield towards the RHNA. So you get an extra 2 market rate units and 1 affordable unit. And the last impact really is you get greater density, right? So to accommodate those 2 extra units, that could mean another story of housing, which affects urban design as well. So, these are some of the policy implications. One thing to note, something we've observed in larger projects is that some developers don't always utilize the full extent of the bonus, due to a variety of factors such as, the parcel size affecting parking, or perhaps there's a risk aversion to kind of moving to a different construction type. So while larger projects are utilizing the state density bonus, they sometimes don't build to the full extent permitted. So we then analyzed the feasibility of projects invoking the state density bonus, this time focusing only on the 20% option, which was the only one that wasn't feasible in the baseline. When you factor in the density bonus, the additional market rate units allowed by the density bonus essentially make the 20% set aside in all projects feasible, even for condo projects with low sales prices. That with the density bonus, it was feasible in all options being analyzed. In conclusion, option B, increasing the policy to a 15% set aside, is feasible with or without the density bonus. This yields affordable units on site and generates in lieu fees for the Housing Trust Fund. Increasing to 20% is also feasible, especially if one factors the impact of the state density bonus. But without the density bonus, condo projects would have a challenging time penciling without further adjustments. So staff is recommending in its report to increase the set aside to 15%, requiring a must-build affordable unit for projects with at least 7 units, and a requirement to pay an in lieu fee for fractional units. That concludes my presentation, and we're open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, and I know we also have a public speaker, and my colleagues may have questions. How many of the developers, Jessica, that you talk to are actually small project developers, that they have projects with 10 units or less with direct experience in West Hollywood?
So I can pull up the list, Mayor Meister. So I know we talked to multiple developers, all of which have experience building in West Hollywood. If anything, the criteria was that you were a small developer. So I think I should pull up the list to give you the names, but we culled the list, in collaboration with the city staff, with the purpose of identifying developers who are actively building in the city.
Right, and how many of them had projects with 10 or less units?
I think 2 actively did. All of them were experienced developers, but I think 2 of them were significant projects in the pipeline, and were able to provide the most direct comments. But just generally speaking about return on cost and, what makes a project go or not, and also experience a density bonus would have been all of them, as well as with the site constraints of West Hollywood, all of them.
So how many did you actually speak with? That you had 2 out of how many?
2 of the 5.
So-
All 5 are
okay,
active in
so
West
the-
Hollywood. 2 are most active in small, like that's their bread and butter work. But all 5 are active in West Hollywood.
Okay. And do we know if a developer can waive the in lieu fee as a concession based on the state law?
Yeah, so we actually, Jessica, can you pull up that slide? We looked at that. I think it was cited in a letter, and we wanted to specifically address that. So, Jessica, do you have it?
Which slide, Allison, would you like me to pull up?
Sorry, the last one with the small projects. One second, I can pull up. We were specifically in the letter for, right here, I'll pull it up. So the language, I think, that's being referenced, let me share my screen. The language being referenced right here was about, in the letter that you all received, was about using 65915K, which is the density bonus law, to waive the incremental fee. And so if you continue on, we had our city attorney weigh in, and she's on the line as well now. If you continue reading 65915L, the state law anticipates this action. And so it specifically calls out right here that a city county that the subdivision does not limit or require the provision of direct financial incentives for the housing development, including the provision of publicly owned land by the city, county, or city, or the waiver of fees or dedication requirements. And so in reviewing that, we and the city attorney would stand by the idea that those could not be waived, as mentioned in the letter that was received in public comment. And if there's additional questions, I can have the city attorney jump in.
Okay. And has your analysis taken into account how much would be lost in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund?
So I can address that. That was part of the kind of conclusion analysis within the report. And it's actually the reason that we selected option B instead of option C, which would have produced the most units. Option B provided both units and a fair amount of funding going into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. If none of the units were built, I think there would have been an additional about 2 to 3 million on the analysis that we did. But at option B, there would be a number of units built, about 16, and you would only lose about $2 to $3 million. So we felt that, that was a fair trade-off when we looked at that analysis over the last 6 years, because we gained some of those units specifically being built by the developers in small projects spread throughout the city, but we also retained a significant amount of funds going into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund that we can then leverage to provide 100% affordable housing projects or services.
Okay. Do my colleagues have any questions before we take public comment? Okay, why don't we take that public comment?
Thank you, Mayor. We have one speaker in Zoom. Jamie Francis, you'll have 2 minutes. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Thank you, City Council. I'm sorry I need to speak quite often today because of the subject matters. I have to speak later because of the housing element. I want to say that I'm kind of disappointed with the powers that were given to developers in years prior when there was no active ordinance to seek out and review Airbnbs that they abuse. Now you have one of the developments on Sunset Boulevard that they are going to have a $50 million penthouse. A lot of people like me were forced into rent control or buildings that were built prior to 1979. What about those of us who want those housing opportunities that we couldn't avail ourselves or couldn't have an opportunity to move into buildings because it was restricted to only higher income persons or moderate income or people that had excessive funds who were wealthy? And here you have these developers just donating and contributing to, rather, I don't want to use donate, but contributing to the in lieu fees on the housing trust in West Hollywood that had lack of housing already.
And I'm just disappointed that they went unscathed, they were able to monopolize on housing, that they could increase rents or have the ability to sell condominiums and not provide the necessary housing for the population. Like a council member said, well, 36,000 residents. Well, what about those of us that are now minimized? That there used to be 10%, now there was 5%, now there's only 2% of those that can afford to remain in the city of West Hollywood. And if I didn't qualify for an affordable building that I live in, then I wouldn't be here either. And it's just disappointing that things couldn't be put in perspective. Now you have the sunset developments that go up because it's a specific plan that they brought the city to court to say that we don't have to follow that because it wasn't in the city ordinance to begin with, or we can object to it and we don't have to fulfill our requirements or the end of the bargain because we weren't required to 10, 15 years ago. Because of the abject failure of something that was not addressed then, that only now are you providing options. Well, you want federal market rates? Well, now include a couple of affordable units that everybody competes for now. I just wish that you did things that were, that were attainable, that were provided. But now it's something
Thank you, Mr. Francis. Your time is up. Mr. Francis, thank you for your comments. Your time is up.
Thank you. Would anyone like to begin? Sure. Councilmember Erickson.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. In regards to this item, I'm in support of option B. I think it makes the most sense. I won't belabor the point, so that's kind of where I'm at.
Councilmember Horvath.
Thank you very much. One question I did have was whether UDAS was engaged in providing an analysis of what this would look like in the built environment.
Yeah, so we received that comment. So this is just the start of the policy discussion. And so right now, UDAS is already looking at multifamily design standards, which would include this. And it's part of their existing work plan. Additionally, this item, depending on the policy choice tonight, based on the study, will be going to long-range subcommittee, the Planning Commission, and then back here. So this is the start of the process, and also UDAS is also looking at overall multifamily design standards in the city.
So I would be supportive of staff's recommendation tonight with the direction that there be a concurrent analysis by UDAS on what the built environment would look like. I want to make sure that we that we understand the practical impact of this decision and that we don't get unintended consequences out of scale things that we aren't looking to bring to our neighborhoods. We're looking to create housing and that is consistent with how we've been creating our neighborhoods. And so I as long as we're doing those things concurrently and when the ordinance comes back, we have that analysis, I think that's a good path for us to be on.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I was Councilmember Horvath said the things I wanted to say, so I agree with that.
Yeah, I would go with either that or holding off on approving tonight and asking staff to bring back that analysis to have UDAS model what this would look like, particularly in zones 3A and 4A. I mean, it might be that we decide that this should only be in certain residential zones and not all of our residential zones because of what it might look like. I also would like a little bit more analysis from small project developers and contractors in West Hollywood. I don't think just talking to two small project developers is really giving us enough information. I want to make sure also just, the clarification from the city attorney about what happens when, combining an affordable unit and an in lieu fee to make sure that the applicant cannot use a concession to eliminate that in lieu fee portion. And lastly, I would really like to see how many trust fund dollars have been contributed by small projects, 10 units or less in the last RENA cycle. So it would be the last 8 years. to see what that looks like. I'm happy to go along with, as long as we do it concurrently and we have those, all of that information before we approve any ordinance.
Okay, so I'm happy to make that motion that we approve staff's recommendation with the concurrent direction to UDAS to, to provide that analysis and that is inclusive of the direction that's been given here tonight.
I'll second that.
And that includes the additional direction I've given. Okay, I would ask for a roll call.
Thank you. Councilmember Erickson.
Yes.
Councilmember Horvath.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Shine.
Yes.
Mayor Meister.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, staff. And Jessica, we will now move on to item 4D, amendment to the agreement for services with block by block for security ambassador services. Danny Rivas, you are with us live. Wow.
I am with you live, Mayor. I am with you live. So good evening and thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the City Council. My name is Danny Rivas, and I am the Director of Community Safety for the City of West Hollywood. Also joining on this item is Block by Block Vice President of Operations, Derek Hughes, as well as David Aguilar, who is the Regional Vice President for Block by Block. To provide some background, Block by Block has been providing unarmed security services for the city since 2013 and has been working with the city and the West Hollywood Sheriff Station on addressing a variety of quality of life issues. Their goal is to assist in serving as a deterrent to criminal behavior and to identify and report any potential criminal issues to the West Hollywood Sheriff Station when needed. Over the years, the city has made several amendments to the contract to increase foot and bicycle patrols, which are completed primarily in commercial corridors of the community and at city parks. Most recently, after completing a request for proposal process, the city entered into a 2-year agreement with Block by Block on June 6 of this year that incorporated providing uniform bike and foot patrols, primarily in commercial corridors, at fixed kiosks throughout the city, as well as for security guard services and the purchase and maintenance of 2 electric bicycles. After receiving City Council direction on June 27th of this year, city staff met with Block by Block staff to gauge the needs of implementing 30 full-time employee equivalents to provide dedicated residential foot patrols in the community 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This included adding an additional supervisor, purchasing equipment such as radios and uniforms, supplying training specific to the West Hollywood community, and providing additional office space. So the proposed cost for all of these items is included in recommendation 1 and 3 of the staff report. Sorry, next slide. If the proposed contract amendment is approved this evening, Block by Block has committed to having all 30 full-time employee equivalents in place in 60 days. Staff will also initiate a community outreach campaign, which will include working with the city's communications department on issuing a press release and communicating through the city's social media platforms and software applications that email and text community members such as Nixle. Deployment of security ambassadors is still under review. However, a recommended draft of the proposed deployment is reflected on page 16 of 23 in attachment A to the staff report. In addition to that, an assessment will be completed, which will include bi-weekly meetings, which will be held with Block by Block staff, and a monthly meeting, which will be held with the City Community Safety Department, as well as Block by Block staff and the West Hollywood Sheriff Station. Finally, in 6 months, a report will be provided back to the City Council on the programs and crime data in the community following City Council direction. So this concludes the presentation, and myself and Block by Block staff are available for any questions.
We have some public speakers. Do we want to ask questions first or hear from the public? So let's hear from the public first. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, Mayor. Our first speaker is Steve Martin, to be followed by Danielle Wilson. And Steve has left the building. Danielle Wilson.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. My name is Danielle Wilson. I'm speaking as a resident of West Hollywood and on behalf of Unite Here Local 11. We stand in strong support of this increase in unarmed public safety ambassadors. As a resident, I firmly believe that a community is truly safe when its people have good jobs, social services like what we have here in West Hollywood, mental health care, stable housing. The Council's actions on raising the minimum wage, fighting for affordable housing, and now reimagining public safety embrace the same vision. Devastatingly, our union has experienced terrible harm at the hands of the LA County Sheriff's Department. On June 18, 2020, sheriff's deputies shot Andres Guardado 5 times in the back. He was 18 years old at the time. They took his life while he was working as a security guard in Gardena. He had gotten the job to help provide for his family after his father, a hotel worker and one of our members, was laid off due to COVID. We have been fighting for the last 2 years in coalition to seek justice for the Guardado family. For our government to take even one innocent young person's life is such a high price for a family to pay and for our entire community. If we can protect even one person from such a fate, that is priceless. What this city, what this council is doing will be an example for the rest of LA County, as you have led on so many other issues. As an East Side resident, I support this. I support the block by block program and the hardworking men and women who comprise it, like Shay Gibson. And our union stands by the city as well and will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Our next speaker this evening is Eric Matos, and Eric will be followed by Carrie Balbone.
Good evening, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, and honorable council members. My name is Eric Matos. I am a resident of the Weho Heights neighborhood, which is just north of Sunset. I just wanted to come and speak to the item a little bit. As we move forward with rolling out these additional resources, I think that it's absolutely imperative that we look at this from a strategic and needs-based way for distribution of the resources across the community. One neighborhood that I wanted to bring up particularly is my own, and that's the Sunset Strip neighborhood. I've rarely in the past seen block by block patrols in that part of our community, and I think that as we look to expand the access to resources for residential foot patrols, commercial corridor patrols, and for the kiosk programs, that we should look at the Sunset Strip neighborhood as a candidate for that. Obviously noting that there are a lot of communities that would really benefit from this service. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. And thank you for your work. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Eric. Our next speaker and final speaker that I have signed up for this item is Carrie Balbone.
Hello again, Carrie Balbone. I am a public safety commissioner here in West Hollywood. I'm also a resident. Tonight, my comments are my own. You are a model of efficiency. I didn't think I'd be able to stay to speak a little bit more about this item, so congratulations. I said earlier that I support what's been put forward. I will be clear. I think you all know where I stood on this matter. I thought we could have added more block by block in addition to not losing sheriffs, and I don't feel any differently. I think a thoughtful proposal's been put forward. I do think we have to look at what the budget dollars said, because it's now $300,000 more than the budget dollars that were proposed by you at the end of June. I also think there's some great opportunities. I looked through the training program, and I think it's really good. I'd like to make sure that both for the sheriff as well as for block by block, we go back, now that we have a new LGBTQ Commission, to look at training for anyone who is a public servant doing security and or handling safety in the city of West Hollywood, to make sure it still makes sense, it resonates, and that everybody participates in that. That's number one. Number two, I'd like to make sure that all of our different public service agencies have a thorough training about each other and how they work together. I think that's really important. And I'd also like to make sure that what you all proposed as readout sessions, I thought was really good, community engagement. I'd also like to make sure that the Public Safety Commission has a chance to engage. And I'm going to make a last comment. Tonight was really important because we as a community rallied around Shay Gibson. Shay has lived his life to make up for probably some things that he regrets, right? I repeatedly come to this chamber and hear people talk about the Sheriff's Department as if they are one organization of one group of people who all have the same behavior. And I think if we're going to extend empathy and consideration, we need to do that in a balanced way. There are 9,000 people who work for the LASD, and not all of them, especially those who sometimes come here to work for us and save children's lives and other people's lives, are all painted with the same broad brush. We have to give everybody balance and consideration like we've extended to Shay, and I hope that we continue to extend to our sheriffs here locally. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
That's our final speaker, Mayor.
Okay. Do any of my colleagues have comments? I have comments, but Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, thank you. I do want to say that block by block and our sheriff's deputies, I've had meetings with them, and I'm very happy to hear that they're going to be partnering up together. There was a TransCan work training that because of COVID did not happen, and those are going to be ramping up again. I really like the idea of the LGBTQ Commission also discussing any other potential trainings and cross-collaboration. This really is a partnership with our sheriffs. I think I want to just kind of reframe what we are really doing and focusing on. Minus the Sheriff Villanueva, the other people and deputies that work for the department, the discussions that we have around what's happened with police brutality is not necessarily a reflection that the deputies are bad. That's not what this is. We are talking about processes, and we need to keep our focus on processes and changing processes that have not worked and creating accountability and in the community, which is the discussions that we've been having. Yes, we have talked about the budget, and that is certainly a concern. Within that process of coming up with a budget discussion, we had to make certain, we created a proposal that is about process and budgeting. So I just want to make sure we're focusing on process, and this is not a offensive on any deputy that works in this city, and just kind of bring it back to that, or block by block. Now, if within the context of talking about processes and accountability, it's easy to think that, well, there's hurt feelings and all of that, but at the end of the day, it is our job to create new ways of doing things a little bit differently that will allow systems to work and the partnership of our sheriffs with the partnership of block by block to work. And so I do want to also point out, and this is something I thought about, and I also live in Center City. Center City does have higher crimes, and I also know that the sheriffs are going to be working with block by block
to really have a strong partnership and communicate where the high crimes are happening as this program moves forward. So that's something that is in the pipeline, and this presentation of the initial deployment is just that initial deployment, and perhaps we have to kind of take a look at that based on the present stats. Sunset Strip, I mentioned this at the last meeting, really making sure there is a presence there for block by block, that would be great. Definitely, I've also talked to Danny Rivas about connecting with all the neighborhood association once block by block is ramped up in our residential neighborhoods, every single different one, so they can meet the neighbors and residents. And in addition to Nixle, because not everyone's on Nixle, and also I perhaps at our next city manager can give us an update from communications about our text platform that we passed many months ago at our next meeting. That would be a great use of that once it's up and running. I think we also need to go old school and send a mailer to residents with what block by block can do for them, to all of our residents, and their phone number, so it could be handy, and maybe you can drop a little magnet or something with just block by block's phone number. I don't know what we can do to make it as easy as possible. I've had a couple of people reach out to me recently asking for the block by block phone number, so that would be really helpful. And so those are my comments right now. Thank you.
I just have a couple of questions. Thank you, Danny. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and thank you to all the members of the public that spoke. I appreciate it. So I know in the mayor and I did our item for the commercial block by block deployment. It was on the kiosk and then walking around in the foot patrol. And I believe it started July 1st with the contract, and I know you hired all 10 individuals after that time, but I haven't been seeing them around. So tell me where they are. Maybe I'm not supposed to see them and they're doing their jobs. I'm not saying I'm supposed to see them to validate them being there, because I assume that they are doing their work. But my thought originally was that they would be out patrolling in the commercial and the entertainment district area, where we needed more visible foot traffic and presence. And I was out with some friends on Saturday for, a little too longer than I should have been. But I didn't see a single person walk by. So tell me and walk me through the process and maybe how it goes, so the community can better learn more about that.
Yeah, absolutely, Councilmember Erickson. And before I turn it over to either Derek or David from Block by Block to speak to that, what the item did include was additional anywhere from 3 to 4 kiosks, as well as 6 additional security ambassadors, right, to provide additional foot patrol. So we have placed, Block by Block has placed an order for those kiosks. There are some delays due to supply chain issues. We did receive an update stating that 3 of the 4 kiosks would actually be received by the end of this month. And so we're going to be working with the West Hollywood Sheriff Station to kind of look at specific locations throughout the city that we could establish those kiosks. Just know that we can always make adjustments as well in terms of the locations. Currently, right now, we have 3 kiosks that are in place. We have one on La Brea and Santa Monica Boulevard across from the Gateway, and then we also have one at Plummer Park as well as West Hollywood Park. But the additional deployment of that specific item that you and the mayor brought forth will include an additional 4. So we're looking at 2 locations along Santa Monica Boulevard, one on Sunset that Mayor Pro Tem Shine had made mention of, and then we're also looking at a location possibly on Melrose. My understanding, again, before turning it over to both Derek and David, is that they are recruiting, as of July 1st. Of that item, they're starting that recruitment process. So I'll turn it over to either Derek or David to kind of speak to that and where they're at.
Good evening, everybody. So just in regards to the deployment and the visibility, really just depends on the time of day and when you were out and about. There are certain times where our ambassadors aren't deployed in certain parts of the city, and all that was predetermined by working with the Public Safety Department, working with the Sheriff's Department. But they are out there. They are patrolling the boulevard. And again, we also have to factor in breaks. So we have to give them their 15-minute breaks, their lunch meal periods. So there could be a number of reasons why you may not have seen them out there. I know Danny just touched on the kiosk. But again, it's just a matter of us getting together with the Public Safety Department, getting together with the Sheriff's Department to figure out which deployments are best. I know that we normally don't deploy our safety ambassadors along Santa Monica Boulevard prior to 8 p.m. on the west end, which again, at any point in time can change. It's just a matter of sitting down with Public Safety and the Sheriff's Department and having those conversations.
How many people are needed to staff a kiosk? I walked by Weho Park on Saturday and there was 4 people around the kiosk at like 1 o'clock. I don't imagine 4 people need to staff a kiosk. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'd agree with you. I don't think 4 is necessary. However, we do have additional staff deployed in the parks. We've got people that are monitoring the bathrooms. We have people who are walking around the parks. And then some of them are at their fixed posts within like the Aquatic Center here. And then, as I mentioned, we do have staff that will relieve some of the other ambassadors when it comes down to times for taking breaks and lunch meal periods as well.
So then, Danny, you said that the people that, I'm just speaking in terms of the mayor's and mine's item, you have not hired those 6 people yet.
I'll defer to David on that in terms of kind of where they're at. I know that they started the recruitment process based on the fact that the item and the budgeting just went into effect July 1st. So I don't know, David, if you have an update on that.
Sure. So recruitment, it's an ongoing thing for us. Even prior to the conversation about kiosks, that's something that we normally do. So Shay and his team, so Shay has been working with our recruiting team at our corporate office to ensure that he's at his staffing levels and where he needs to be. Once those kiosks are ready to go, then you guys will also see those ambassadors stationed at those locations that you guys see fit.
Great. So then, now that we're approving this, well, it's on the agenda, right? For the 30 individual security ambassadors, once a contract will have to come back, or will it come back again on consent? Or this is it? Great, this is it. Okay, so this is tonight. You have your money. How long do you expect to hire the 30 people? Additional, and I understand you kind of answered that, but the reason why I'm asking is because obviously, and I know they're not just taking a deputy off the street, it's a timed aspect of how this is going, but this can't take till December. This can't take 6-7 months. And I know I don't control hiring practices, but my meaning is this is obviously a huge priority for the city. So individuals need to be hired quickly and efficiently if we're still waiting for 6.
Sure. So 60 days is our target from go. So as soon as you guys approve it, again, Shay has the support of the recruiting team back at our corporate center. So our goal is 60, and we do plan on hitting that mark.
Okay. Those are my questions right now, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem, you had a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. As we were going through some of these, I wanted to ask, I know there's a technology that's used by Block. It was in the contract to enter what the block-by-block ambassadors do, what they come across, time spent, etc. I really would like to know and actually give direction for this is to really be specific about the metrics. I think we need to have more data in all the areas that the city is involved with vendors. So I want to make sure we're actually doing this. I think it said with the city's request, but I think this is information we need to get from every single block-by-block ambassador. It needs to be in the training. And with that, I'd like to also give direction that the response times are entered. So when a block-by-block security ambassador calls the fire department, I want to know how long it takes for them to get there. If they call the MET team, I want to know how long it takes for them to get there. If they call the MIT team, I want to know how long it's going to take for them to get there. If they call the sheriff's deputies,
I would like to know how long the response time is for them to get there. So we have that tracked. That's going to be really essential to the partnership and the success of this program. So that's actually something this is direction for this, for staff on this.
Okay, Councilmember Horvath?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm grateful for the presentation and excited about the possibility of what we could be moving forward tonight. I want to acknowledge a question that was raised regarding the budget and look to David to comment about that to make sure that we're not creating a problem by approving what's before us tonight. And you can let us know what your analysis is of that. You can do that now or.
So what this item includes is an allocation of an additional $1.9 million. That is something that wasn't part of the budget that was presented in June. So there would be an increase. I think at this point staff feels comfortable with where we are with our budget and the economy right now, that we would ultimately be able to cover that cost within our budget. We need to look at blanket adjustments at mid-year, certainly because we're phasing in the decrease of sheriff's deputies. It's not going to be a one-for-one trade-off in this year, maybe in future years, but for this year, there wouldn't be a trade-off, so we would need to make an adjustment at mid-year.
Okay, so yeah, so we're spending more money on public safety and patrols in this year as we're phasing in this the expansion of this program.
Yes.
Okay, and you feel comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think that's important to address. I'm glad that the question was asked, and I think that we have heard consistently from folks throughout the city that they want us paying attention to their safety even more than we have been. And I think that's why we proposed the expansion of the block-by-block teams in commercial, which was initiated by two of my colleagues, and also in the residential areas to help with this effort. And I know that that's a substantial increase, especially for the summer, which I think is very important. Before I left town, I had a great conversation with Shay about how we expect our block by block to be working in partnership with the Sheriff's Department. That it was my hope that there would be effective collaboration and communication, and no surprise, he shared that he had already spoken with Captain Mulder, that they had a great conversation about how this could work and how they will continue to work well together. And I think that's very important because that effective collaboration is essential. There are many components to how we keep people safe in our community, and that's not something that just happened this summer. That's something the city took over the contract for block by block back in 2013, and that contract was actually initiated by our business community on Sunset. So it's interesting to hear that their presence is not perceived as much on Sunset. We want to make sure that that presence continues to be in the places that it's needed. But this isn't something that's happened overnight. This is something that's gradually increased with time. This is something that has been consistently supported by members of this council, by previous members of the council. Support for the ambassadors has never been controversial. So I was deeply disappointed and quite frankly very angry to see what happened in the public discourse about the service of the security ambassadors and the disparagement of their work, of the people, specific individuals, Shay in particular. I think that's not, as if somehow by doing that you're showing solidarity with the Sheriff's Department. That's not what needs to happen here. And I agree, we need to make sure that we are looking at how we're speaking about everyone, because that kind of disparagement of block by block does not uplift the Sheriff's Department or vice versa. That's not how we need to be having this conversation. What we need to be having, the conversation we need to be having is how we responsibly address the safety needs of our community. And I want to be clear because there's been some very extremely inflammatory language that's been used about this council's decision regarding public safety, our expenditure of resources. And I asked staff to prepare a slide that, that was in part showed to the Public Safety Commission, and I thought might be helpful to share so we're rooted in facts and data. Do you have that?
We do, Councilmember.
Okay,
Horvath.
cool.
I know.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That would have been awkward if I asked.
No, Janet's
wasn't
pulling it
there.
up right now.
But it's, you can see that what the slide will show is the amount that we've spent, the amount that we have spent over a 10-year period on the sheriff's contract, and the deputies, the personnel that has come with that expenditure over that 10-year period, as well as what we've been spending when we started in 2013 with, this isn't the slide.
Next slide, there you go.
There we go, thanks. So as you can see, the number of deputies has declined, even though we are now spending the most we've ever spent on the Sheriff's Department, which is not a criticism of them. It's an acknowledgement that we have to do more to enhance their service, that we need to support the work that they do in the community. Malibu, for example, has a volunteer on patrol program. This is not uncommon with cities who contract for service, to have different kinds of services to enhance the role that the Sheriff's Department or law enforcement plays in their community. And so this is what we spend on the Sheriff's Department. Do you also have the slide for block by block?
Next slide.
Thanks. So this is do you have the expenditure?
You know what? It's actually on the previous slide. So no, if you go to the second one, yeah, there you go. So security ambassadors is actually reflected in green. I know it's a little difficult to kind of see, but in there, it kind of starts in fiscal year 14 and more.
Great, thank you. So you can see in the green section, actually we spent more on block by block back in 2020 than in 2022. And you can see, we have continued that increase. We've continued to enhance this program because we've seen effective results. I was glad to hear from Steve Martin that an acknowledgement of the effectiveness of block by block on the east side, and his enthusiasm for the entire community benefiting from that kind of service. And it's my hope that we can continue to look at these services as complementary to each other, that we can think about how we educate people about how to use the security ambassadors and calls for service, so we allow Sheriff's Department to be focused on violent crime, on robberies, the things that they are uniquely trained to handle, that we want them to be addressing in the community. That this division of duty allows for increased safety and enhanced service. So this is not intended to be anything but an increase in how we address safety issues and having different kinds of response for the different kinds of challenges that we're facing today on our streets. We see mental health challenges, we see struggles with people who are unhoused, and how do we meet them where they are? How do we get them into service and care? We've done that through the Sheriff's Department MET team, but we've also done it with our street teams that Corey coordinates, and we can also provide that service through block by block. And so it is my hope that now that everyone's checked into the reality that we do have this service, that we use it in a way that is more effective and helps to address the concerns that we see out on the street. And I expressed in a call last week to folks from Block by Block that it is my hope that we start to develop personal relationships with the security ambassadors who will be on patrol in neighborhoods, as we have done potentially with deputies that have been in neighborhoods, and develop those personal relationships as well, so people know and can call and can speak to by name the people who are serving our community and working to keep us safe. So I hope that our communication staff is working on educating the community. I know it's going to take some time for people to transition to calling the security ambassadors. And I know that you're already working on how you keep that line of communication with the Sheriff's Department. So if you get a call that is best handled by them or vice versa, that you're able to, have that kind of communication. That was my intention in the action that I took, and I believe it was the intention of our council, regardless of how the votes went, to be entirely focused on our community safety, and I hope that that's the conversation we can continue to have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Horvath. So first of all, I just want to say that I'm not concerned about communication and relationship between block by block and our sheriff's station, because they, as Councilmember Horvath mentioned, they have been working together for many, many years, ever since the sunset bid hired the security ambassadors to deal with not only helping people, tourists, navigate down Sunset, but also to deter crime, as well as trash issues, which actually was one of the big issues on Sunset Boulevard way back when. So that is not a concern for me. I did also, as Carrie mentioned, looked at that budget difference, the 1.65 versus 1.8. My feeling is that if we want to try to make this work, just as I would have preferred to give Captain Mulder everything he needs to make sure that his new position and the Sheriff's Department and the Sheriff's Station in West Hollywood is successful, to give him what he needs, I would want the same for block by block, to make sure that you have all of the equipment and personnel and whatever it is that you need to make this program successful, because a successful program means a safer city. So so I think that we have the money in the reserves. We're going to be looking at this, as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, about, I had the same note about making sure that we keep track of contacts, and not only for the additional 30, but really for all of block by block ambassadors, their contacts with sheriffs and with other organizations that we work with, to make sure that that the way we are distributing our public safety funds is the right way. I also I had discussed at the meeting I had with Danny and the block by block representatives, to try to come up with an easy phone number for us to remember, to give to our residents and businesses, something that's just super easy. So when we do send out communications about it, just like, I know it may not be able to be a 3-digit number, but just something very, very easy, like 555 block by block, whatever. Something that's that someone can just think of immediately and not have to think twice about it. Regarding training, Mayor Pro Tem and I are bringing forward an item with regard to our training of our sheriffs, and we talked about making sure that everybody is coordinated in that training, block by block as well. And then lastly, I also want to confirm that that deployment obviously can be adjusted from the proposal. I also noticed that the number of deployment hours in Center City was about 50% of both the east side and the west side, and I just want to make sure we look at that again before we actually put a deployment program in place. Also, I want to confirm that if for any reason we need to cut hours, that there is an opt-out in our contract. For example, if, God forbid, there is another pandemic that requires us to cut the budget, by 10% or 20%, that we can do that without being penalized for that. And then lastly, I'd like to ask that prior to cutting any deputies, that we have staff come back to us at least the meeting prior. So maybe that's in 45 days, because we're saying that in 60 days block by block is going to be hopefully fully have their 30 people in place, actually 34, 36 people in place. So I would like to get an update from public safety on the block by block hiring, the status of that, the status of the training, and also I would like to get our most recent crime statistics so that we have a baseline as we move forward. And then when we get our reports, we can look at those crime statistics and have that baseline and be able to see what's working and what's not working. So I would like that before any sheriff's cuts happen, in case we decide that we're not ready yet to do that, to cut the sheriffs. Yes, Councilmember Erickson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I do support what you are talking about there. In addition to this, my biggest concern right now is the hiring of these individuals, and I know that we're not engaging in taking one away, sheriff's deputy away at the moment, but we do need those important check-ins if this item is to pass, either to the council or the city manager to update us that we've hired all 6, so that item is done. Now we're hiring 30. We have it going on, and hopefully it's sooner rather than later, so this continues to work. And how that data with those crime statistics comes back to us, I think, is really important, because I think we're going to be able to see some measurable outcomes from the increased foot patrols and I think public awareness, and I think that's really important that we focus on that, just as we're getting done with our audit of the sheriff's department and going out with an outside firm to do it. I do agree with, I think, Mayor Pro Tem, you said a magnet or something that we could figure out, and how to call block by block in an easier way. I have it in my phone, but I need to memorize it in a different aspect. So it would be great for the city, but also to highlight the really unused aspect of the escort program that you provide. I think that's a really valuable tool to our community. I've given it to many individuals who have greatly benefited from it. So if that could be included on whatever outreach that is, or if you need an escort home or something like that, I know that you have that trust in the community members. So it would be great to have that addition on there. And I do think if it's a mailer, if it's something else like that, I think that helps disseminate this information in a really positive way. And then it would be great to see Shay or someone, you can't give it all to Shay, although he's great. So I'm fine with that. But, really going to our advisory boards and our commissions. I know Commissioner Baldwin said really working with the public safety. I know you're at the Public Safety Commission meeting, but how you can work with them to continue this conversation moving forward. But doing that series of rounding at all of the boards and commissions to kind of, reintroduce yourselves, talk to people. But I know you'll be out at National Night Out tomorrow, but we do have a lot of new neighborhood watch groups that are actually popping up. So how can you schedule some, private sit downs with perhaps the sheriff's department along with you? I know Mulder loves his coffee, so I see him in the back, right? But maybe sit down with him to promote that continued partnership that I know you do with the sheriff's department. So getting to know every neighborhood watch group, because they're kind of our eyes and ears as you are. So maybe that would be some additional ways in which you can continue to do engagement, involvement, and just really continue to push out that narrative of what is going on versus what is said as being going on. So I'm requested to move this to consent. I'm in support of this. I think the additional direction is extremely helpful. And so I'm prepared to make a motion with all this. Mayor Pro Tem Shine.
Yeah, just one more thing for the motion is, I know that in this item was the ability for block by block to administer Narcan. Will they be receiving Narcan to administer? That's really going to be important too, and that should be factored into this motion. They should receive Narcan if they're going to, the ability is nothing without the actual Narcan.
Yeah.
Is that a problem? You're okay with that? We can fit that into the budget, Danny?
Yeah, actually, just to provide a little bit I'll turn it over to David and Derek to respond. So currently the leadership at Block by Block does have the ability to administer Narcan and has already been trained. So they are going to be planning on rolling out to the additional security ambassadors that are going to be hired. And David and Derek, you add something if I'm missing.
No, I think that covers it. I think that covers it. But we also stock Narcan that we can supply our teams with too, and that can just be ordered through us.
Can you do also the test drinking strips as well? Is that possible? I know it's going out to the bars and nightclubs, but some people sometimes like to get a strip when you're talking to them in any way. I don't know. That's just an additional add-on. You can say no later, but it's just something that I've been thinking about because I do know community members have contacted me saying that they did appreciate the ability to get those and how it was used, and so adding that ongoing presence and awareness might be helpful, but that's another logistical hurdle.
Maybe for the commercial areas, since that's where our bars are not residential. This is a residential contract.
Yeah, we can certainly add that to the block-by-block security ambassadors. I haven't seen the test strip yet, but I imagine it's relatively small, and so it's easy maybe for the security ambassadors to have a stock of that with them and be able to pass that out to anybody that's willing to accept it. I do have a question, Mayor, regarding the motion about returning back with an update, because one of the things that is already included as part of the direction that we received on the 27th of June was to return back 6 months, right, after the program had been implemented, so essentially 6 months from today, so to speak, to be able to provide updates on the crime data.
Yeah, this isn't really an update about that. This is for an update about how the hiring is going, how the training is going, because before we say goodbye to one sheriff's deputy, I want to make sure that everything is in place that is supposed to be in place before anything like that happens. And then also to have the update on crime statistics, so if there is something going on that we may not want to do that or delay it, that we have that opportunity to do that at that time.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. If there are no other comments, there's comments. Our city manager.
No, I was just going to suggest that you include that language actually in the motion, because I think what we heard on the 27th of June was that we just automatically reduce.
Right, and this is this is basically different than that.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it sounds like we're just coming back with an update, more of an update on block by block and how the training and hiring is going, and general information on crime. Like the item wouldn't discuss reducing sheriff's deputies at that time.
What I would like is that this happens before we take away any sheriffs, so that we know that everything is in place and we are being responsible about what we are doing. And so we do that 45 days before, in 45 days, which is 15 days before everything is supposed to happen, what's happening with block by block, what's happening with the sheriffs, and make sure that everything is in place before we say.
In other words, it's an assurance that this, you gave us 2 months, so an assurance that the 30 are hired within 45 days then, is what the mayor is requesting. Is that correct with our timing?
Well, what I'm...
Yeah, so we wouldn't, my guess is they wouldn't be hired. We'd be somewhere in that process, because that would be the September 17th meeting, which I think is about 45 days from now, which is not what Block by Block proposed. I mean, they proposed 60 days, but I think we'd be somewhere close to the 30.
Yeah, and I understand that. What I'm saying is I think we'll have a pretty good idea how recruiting and how training is going in 45 days. And if you're not at where you thought you'd be at in 45 days, then maybe we delay until we know that everybody is on board and trained.
I think that's fine. I'm fine with a report back, and then we can decide at that point. Yeah.
Okay,
As
great.
far as training and hiring.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor.
Yes.
Mayor, if I may, we have one more speaker on Zoom that joined. If you're open to.
Well, we're pretty much done with this item, so I would say that we'd be happy to hear from them during public comment.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we are going to now move on.
I need to take a.
Oh, do we need to, we need to vote on this.
So you're so
I'm done with
ready.
this item.
Do you want to make the motion? I'll second.
Yeah, so let me know if I get everything, colleagues. So we are going to include a 45-day back check-in to ensure that hiring, training, and, did I get everything?
That recruiting and hiring and training are on
pace.
On pace.
With where we're going. Additional promotional and communication outreach to our residents, not to be limited to a mailer, a magnet, digital, whatever you wanted to do. Best use of environmental resources, as we all have more plastic in our lives and we don't need it, but how we can continue to get the word out.
A phone number.
And then the phone number, as well as adding on to the escort aspect, and then the Narcan direction. And maybe that can be a part of the report back if you said, yes, they're all carrying Narcan now, or whatever it looks like. And then the spike testing strips, but that's, not a deal breaker, in my opinion.
And recent crime statistics.
And recent crime statistics and that outreach and how we use. And I think, was it Mayor Pro Tem that also talked about response times and calls and interactions?
Yes, the measuring the metrics and response times in my direction for making sure the metrics are very detailed. And the mailer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep, that's fine. So that was a communal motion, but I'm happy to take authorship of it.
And I'll second that.
Great.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. Councilmember Erickson.
Yes.
Councilmember Horvath.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Shine.
Yes.
Mayor Meister.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Great. Okay. 4E has been moved to consent, so we are now at 4F, appointment to the Planning Commission. Okay.
I'm ready.
Would you like to make a motion? Oh, no, we're doing nominations.
It's an at-large.
Thank you.
Yes, at-large position.
Thank you. I would like to nominate Eric Matos.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other nominations?
I'd like to second that nomination.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second to appoint Eric Matos to the Planning Commission. Councilmember Erickson.
Aye.
Councilmember Horvath.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Shine.
Aye.
Mayor Meister.
Aye.
Eric Matos is appointed to the Planning Commission for a term expiring February 28th, 2023. Thank you.
Congratulations, Eric. You got a lot of work
Congrats,
to do. Congratulations.
Are we taunting him? I mean,
We can. No, we can't. Come on up for public comment, Eric. There you go.
Okay. We are now on to new business, and 5A was moved to consent. And 5B, request for financing commitment letter and authorization to issue a loan from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund in the amount of $10 million for construction and permanent financing at 910 to 916 North Weatherly Drive. If we can have just a brief.
Sure. I can keep it short. So good evening, Allison Bartle again. I'm joined by John Leonard. The item before you is a letter of commitment for financing and construction of an affordable project at 910 Weatherly. The loan commitment is a common process in our jurisdiction and others, and is a required step in the process to move forward with county funding sources. It does not guarantee approval of the project. And so very briefly, this is the site. It was acquired by West Hollywood Community Housing Corp. In 2019 for $2.65 million. Included in the purchase was a contract with the adjacent First Baptist Church of Beverly Hills for the development of parking and 2 units to replace what's existing. Just a little background, West Hollywood Community Housing Corp. has submitted their preliminary application, which proposes 100% affordable building, likely 80 units, but again, they're still going through the design process, 65 parking stalls, and it's in the R4B zone. Again, the proposed project will be reviewed and considered for approval by the Planning Commission and Design Review Subcommittee, as well as CEQA review. WHCHC, as part of that, will also be conducting public outreach to receive, to acquaint the community and receive feedback. This is requesting a $10 million loan, which is a lot, but it's also, spread across a significant number of units, and it puts our local subsidy at between 121 and 125,000 a door, depending on final project size. It'll be a 5-year construction loan and then a 57-year perm loan. Again, they need this to move forward with county and state funding. It doesn't guarantee approval, and they'll use this letter as a local match and to leverage it for over $42.6 million in additional resources. With that, I will stop sharing. I'm also joined tonight on the line. We've got Jesse Slansky from West Hollywood Community Housing Corp., Anoop Patel, which is their new director of real estate, and Rachel Bacola, who's the project manager for the site, should you have any questions.
Great. I do have some questions, and do we also have speakers, public speakers, Melissa?
I do not have anyone signed up to speak on this item,
Okay.
only in final public comment.
All right, thank you. So the interest rates, is that, how similar is that to current interest rates?
Significantly lower. These are our local rates that we control.
Okay.
And so I can address that too. We typically provide lower interest rates to our affordable housing development partners so that they aren't saddled with that higher interest rate and higher interest amount, particularly as they develop the project for the first few years.
Okay, and then if you could help me with the process part of this, if, for example, this item was approved as is, and it goes through, and then the community outreach begins, and it is decided that 80 to 89 units is just too big a project for the site, especially considering that the base density for this R4 site is 17 units. And so this is quite a significant increase in units from the base density. What would happen then? For example, this is approved as 80 to 89 units. They start going out for their financing, West Hollywood Community Housing Corp., and then Planning Commission or we say, no, you need to make this 60 to 70 units. What happens then with this loan agreement and application for financing?
Yeah, we're setting it a minimum commitment of 80, so if it needed to be lowered, we'd have to come back to this body and request that to be lowered and provide justification.
But what does that do to their process, West Hollywood Community Housing Corp., and their financing?
Yeah, I'm happy to discuss it. I can also, if Jesse or Anoop want to jump on and discuss
Yeah,
the process on their end.
that would be great.
Welcome to have them jump on, and Anoop Patel could, if you want to introduce yourself as well, to the city council.
Hi, Jesse.
Hi, my name is Anoop Patel. Or go ahead, Jesse. Did you want to speak?
I just wanted to say good evening and thank you for considering this. And so, to answer your question, if we have more than the minimum number of units, there is no change to the process. But as Allison said, if the ultimate unit count is lower than the threshold here, we would have to come back before the city council and have the loan commitment amended to match the new unit count.
Right, and what does that mean to all of your, because what I noticed is you need this in order to move forward with trying to get other financing, correct? I mean, that's part of this, is that you've asked us for this, and then you go to other bodies for additional financing. So if this has to come back to us, what does that do to your other commitments?
It really depends on the timeline of where we are in the process with the other funding sources and whether those have already been committed or not. So in a best case scenario, we would just come back and it would be presented to city council and you would amend the commitment. In a worst case scenario, there would be some time delay, and I cannot, at this time, I don't know. But I would say at a worst case scenario, it could delay the project by 1 year.
Okay.
Because some of these funding sources, there's only one opportunity to apply each year. And so if we miss the window, the project would be delayed by a year.
Okay, so that's why I'm asking this question, because I don't want to get into deliberating, but I'm wondering if we are putting the cart before the horse by coming forward with a number that may not end up being the number, and then you have the then there's the possibility of you losing that other funding or having to reapply in a year. Why not wait until you go through the process with community outreach and have a sense of how the community feels about the project and environmental work and what planning, design, and review thinks about the project?
Yeah, I would just, Jesse, if you want to jump in, I would just add that we have to show a local match and leverage financing in order for them to compete for the next round. So it's all has to happen a bit at the same time in order to stay competitive and put together the capital stack required to finance the project.
I don't understand what you mean.
Somebody has to be the first commitment, and all of the sources are competitive, and they all prioritize having local matches or other sources of funding already in the deal. I can say that other sources, I mean, affordable housing is a public policy priority statewide. I mean, it's a housing shortage, as you know. We're building housing. People being other jurisdictions, other agencies, have been very accommodating as circumstances change and amending projects in process as we're throwing curveballs left and right, and we have to adapt to these changing circumstances. So I am less concerned about somebody else pulling the funding if the unit count goes down than I am just getting our foot in the door. If we don't have the local match now, that will for certain delay the project by at least a year. And it's a housing shortage. We want to build a housing and we want to build it now.
Right. So would it be possible then to either have a larger range or say up to 80 units and up to $10 million in our agreement with you?
We can definitely have a range. We would need a minimum dollar commitment or at least a dollar per unit commitment, so that way the other sources can rely on the commitment letter. But it can be, we certainly can make amendments so that it's a broader, to answer your question, yes.
Okay, so
I wouldn't want to set a maximum. I would be hesitant to do that because our current proposal actually proposes 89 units. The floor of 80 units was really to allow for some modifications through the public process. So I'm totally fine with a range, but I would be hesitant to put a maximum number of units.
Okay, but you have a maximum now.
Well, yes, yes, yes.
So,
I mean, through the design process right now, we have a mix of, which we'll present to everybody, a mix of studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. I mean, there's a chance that somebody could say, oh, we don't want 2 bedrooms, and that would allow us to put more studios, and we could actually increase the number of units. So that's why I hate having a maximum, but whatever you guys feel comfortable with, we certainly appreciate your support of affordable housing. We're very grateful.
right, and we appreciate you, Jesse. I'm looking at 2 projects before yours, Martell and Detroit. They're 5-story projects in I don't know if it's R3 or R4, but the Martell lot size is about 20,000 square feet and was approved with 50 units. This was just last January. The Detroit lot size is 13,400 square feet, and that was approved for 48 units in June. And the Weatherly lot size is 14,400, so just 1,000 square feet larger than the Detroit project, and only 7% larger, and yet you're looking for really double the units. And it just concerns me that, I mean, if we need to have more units than 48 or 50, I can understand that, and if there's a good design and the community is supportive, I think that would be great. But I'm just having a hard time seeing these numbers. It reminds me of an old planning commissioner that we had, Brad Crow, who used to say, you know, you're trying to fit 50 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound bag. And I don't want to see you go through this process and then have to go through the process again and possibly lose, you know, time and lose funding when maybe we can have a more open agreement with some realities of what has been approved in the past in order to move forward. I mean, that's what I would be comfortable with. You know, if we said something like, you know, 65 to, you know, 89 units, and John Leonard could figure out what that dollar amount is, 6 million to 10 million, based on what we just paid Detroit.
We could still say up to 10 million. We could just lower the range of units. We could do a unit range from 65 to 89 with up to $10 million.
I mean, that's what I would be comfortable with, and quite frankly, I think the community would be much more comfortable with that. They'd feel like they actually have a voice in that this is not a done deal, and even though I understand that it's not a done deal, it feels like a done deal when it's a contract, right? I mean, it's a legal agreement between us. The other thing that I would be more comfortable with in the contract is there's a line in the contract that says, in addition, West Hollywood Community Housing Corp. Shall consider UDAS recommendations, UDAS being the Urban Design Architect Studio, and to me that's not the same as shall follow UDAS recommendations. I want to make sure that we're clear on our expectations if we're providing this funding, and my feeling is the reason we provide the funding, number one, obviously to gain affordable units, which is very important, but also secondly, that we have a little bit of influence over the type of project that is developed in our city. So I would advocate to my colleagues that we change that language, or at least make it a little bit stronger than shall consider UDAS recommendations. I mean, we brought in UDAS because we want to make our design and architecture in our city the best it can be, and I think it would be important, at least for me, and I would think the community, that we change that language to be a little bit stronger.
May I?
Yes, please.
So, while I understand your concerns, I don't share them personally. I'm actually fine with the recommendations provided. Jesse, I've heard from several members of the community, but you all are dedicated and will be starting the process of community outreach for this project and what's been proposed, right? I know parts of it are in the staff report, but, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Great. And the reason why I'm not very comfortable with the UDAS language, although I understand, is that while I understand the importance of the UDAS studio, there are things that they even bring forth to us, for example, the billboard on Sunset several meetings ago, that I did not think were architecturally sound or even worthy of being awarded that contract. So I'm hesitant to kind of handcuff the West Hollywood Housing Corporation to specific design aspects, but also I am worried that we are getting into a little bit of deliberation about this actual project itself, and I think that is a problem. We don't need to bring on Lauren Langer at the moment for that, but I think my motion is going to be to move this item forward, to come back. I know this project will probably come back before us, but at the moment, that is my motion on the table.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, as far as the UDAS aspect, I'm not sure I want to make it a requirement either. I think the architect needs some leeway. Maybe we can make it a little stronger. What is the language right now? Shall consider. Shall work thoroughly with UDAS in consideration of their recommendations. So it's a little heftier. As far as the 65 to 89, I do understand that aspect only with respect to making sure there's not a delay just in case. I don't want this delayed, and I think the process will be the process. So as it goes through Planning Commission, and if it ends up being 80, 89, I'm a very strong proponent of affordable housing, but just in case it doesn't, I don't want this delayed, Jesse, in case there's even that little risk. So I think giving Jesse and the West Hollywood Housing Corporation a little bit more leeway, going with 65 Jesse, would it make more sense to do 80 or 89 to give you the maximum leeway so that this gets done quick?
If I'm going to go for it, can we just say 65 to 90 to make it a nice round number?
I'm fine with that.
Mayor Pro Tem, maybe shall work collaboratively with UDAS. Is that some language?
Yeah, I think that's
okay.
That's good.
And then we say up to 10 million. Is that right? Okay. Yeah. Councilmember Horvath?
Thank you. I know that they're already working with UDAS on this project. I know that there has been input, and that I suspect that will continue. But I just want to clarify that this is standard practice for affordable housing developers. This isn't unique to this project. It isn't unique to West Hollywood Housing Corporation. It isn't even unique to the city of West Hollywood. Every city has a process. In fact, the awarding of affordable housing trust fund dollars, public dollars to a project like this, for example, in the city of Santa Monica, is taken away from the city council entirely and is done by another body that is appointed specifically to award funds for projects like these, because these awards happen concurrently with the development process. The city council in Los Angeles, it's a concurrent process, and this is how it is done in order for these types of projects to move forward. So I just want to make clear, we're not predetermining anything, and I don't think we should speak any more about what the proposed project is, so we aren't wading into the waters of what the content of the project is. But I just want to make very clear, I know there's a concern about the public, though I will note that there aren't very many people in this room right now demonstrating an outcry about what is before us tonight. I do think that it was important to clarify this is standard operating procedure for these kinds of projects. We're not doing anything out of the ordinary in terms of what we've done in the city or what other cities do to make projects like this happen. And so I'm very comfortable moving forward with providing this commitment to ensure that a potential opportunity for increased affordable housing in our city is able to be realized with the dollars that we set aside for exactly this kind of purpose.
Did you make a motion?
Yeah.
Are you incorporating my comments into the motion? Okay, then I'll second that.
So we're saying 65
65 to 90.
65 to 90. Up to.
Up to 10 million.
And then shall work collaboratively with UDAS.
Yep.
And really quickly, I just wanted to clarify with Jesse on the up to amount. Jesse, for your funding commitments, is the up to $1 million,
10 million.
do you need to add any language about a per unit subsidy, or does that language work?
I mean, for our purposes, I would definitely prefer a per unit subsidy, so that way we can just sort of scale it up or down as needed, so we don't have to come back to you. You don't have to come back to you to amend the actual language, just so that it's a definitive commitment letter for the other sources.
That's fine.
I'm fine with that.
So, yeah, that's fine. So you're saying like $165,000 a unit? Is that what you mean, Jesse?
Exactly.
Or whatever that number is?
Whatever the number is, yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's fine.
Great.
Okay. You made a motion?
Yes, I did, Mayor.
I seconded it.
Okay, then can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor. Thank you. Councilmember Erickson.
Yes.
Councilmember Horvath.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Shine.
Yes.
Mayor Meister.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now we are done. I think we are done. Let's see, we have no legislative. Do we have additional public comment?
We have 2 individuals in Zoom, so
Okay.
Janet will call those individuals.
Let's do it.
Our first speaker on Zoom is Roxanne, followed by Jamie Francis. Roxanne, you'll have 2 minutes. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Hello, my name's Roxanne. I grew up in West Hollywood, and I live in the Sunset Strip area. I just want to quickly thank Councilmember Horvath for, I'm sorry if I'm misspelling your name, but for bringing up the budget. This is about item 4D, and just stating some facts, because I think the public this has been too contentious and a little emotional, and people aren't really looking at the facts and why the city is making this healthy move. But so I just wanted to thank you for mentioning how the city's actually spending more money on the budget's bigger for the sheriffs, even though there's less of them in 2022, for example. So I just want to thank you for bringing up the facts. And I hope the public will really just look at the facts. Right. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Roxanne. Our next speaker is Jamie Francis. Jamie, you'll have 2 minutes. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. City Council, I appreciate your attention. This is a very important issue because not only has there been lack of affordable housing in this city over the last 40 years or so before city has been incorporated. It has always been an issue because this has been a high income community, that people with money and with assets have been able to move into this jurisdiction, so much so that the issue at hand is Westwood, Beverly Hills, and West Hollywood, and Santa Monica in certain parts is on par to compete with that of Manhattan and the Midtown Manhattan area and Lower East Side of Manhattan. That is the most expensive areas to live in the nation. So for things to be, delayed and maybe looked over the last, decades past, it has been detrimental for people like me to attain and move into this jurisdiction, and it took a lot of time and energy, and if not, honestly, close to 17 years. And it's disappointing that, this had to be, delegated to other city councils and iterations, and now you want to pass things with things that were addressed, that should have been addressed decades past, like Section 8 protection, that not until 2014 was there something, because people were being priced out, because housing is unattainable, inaffordable, and a lot of people aren't going to offer the apartments for minimum cost or low-income residents or long-term residents because they want to maximize their profit, including the developers. And that's why I spoke earlier, because I didn't have the ability to speak on both subjects. But I just want to let you know that you have to clarify language in your housing elements. And I've been speaking about this for 11 years to Mayor Meister, to Mayor and then Councilmember Horvath. Well before Seppi Shine and John Erickson, John D'Amico, John Durant, John Heilman, Abby Lamb, I have basically asked it for many opportunities to talk about housing matters that are important.
Mr. Francis, your time is up.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mayor, we have one last speaker in Zoom. Ms. Tiger, you'll have 2 minutes. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Good evening, City Council and City staff. During the June 27, 2022 City Council meeting, it was announced that the RFP for the Drag Laureate program would take place during the beginning of July. To my knowledge and in reviewing the city website, this has not taken place. It has been 2 years since the City of West Hollywood passed the Drag Laureate program. Since 2020, when the program was passed here in West Hollywood, other cities have followed West Hollywood's lead. New York is in the process of creating a Drag Laureate program, and it's also been adopted in San Francisco recently. San Francisco announced that they will select the Drag Laureate in October of this year. It is unfortunate that despite our city being the first to adopt this program, we are in danger of not being able to be the first to select the Drag Laureate. As the liaison from the LGBTQ+ advisory board to this program, I've been involved in discussions that resulted in numerous suggestions to enhance the program. These suggestions were submitted in the fall of last year. I urge the city to follow through with the RFP so that we may not only be the first to pass the program, but the first to select the Drag Laureate before October. On a final note, San Francisco will award a $35,000 stipend to the Drag Laureate, whereas the City of West Hollywood proposed $5,000. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is that it?
That's our final speaker, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any council member comments?
Yeah, I forgot to congratulate all the new executive officers of WeHome. I think that was amazing. I do want to thank all the previous officers, especially Bobby, who was president for a while during COVID and all of his work that he did. But congratulations to all the new officers. And then regarding the Drag Laureate issue, I know that wasn't that your item way back, whenever it was? I thought that was like almost done. I don't know. I remember an email from Mike Che, but perhaps.
Is John Leonard still here?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you're able to address it, but I thought it was pretty much done, but maybe I'm wrong, but maybe we could fast track it.
So we received a number of comments from both the Chamber of Commerce and other individuals. So we're incorporating those changes into the program for the Drag Laureate, and we'll be releasing the RFP very shortly.
When do you anticipate us actually having the selection committee for that?
So once we release the RFP, which we will do probably within the next week or so, we would put out at least a 30-day period for individuals to apply for that. Might be a little bit longer just so that everybody has enough time to apply to it. And then the selection committee will make their selection within probably at the most 30 days after that. So I would say mid-fall.
Okay. Well, let's keep in mind we would like to be the first, so let's just keep it moving. I do want to say, though, one of the reasons that we didn't pursue it over the last few years was a thing called COVID, and we just felt that it wasn't the right time to do it. So what is the expression? We're running as fast as we can. We're working on it. So, okay. Any other comments? I would just say I want to thank the community for speaking out about whether they agree or disagree with our decisions. I think that we can't dismiss community members' opinions, and I, for one, appreciate hearing from the community. Of course, none of us deserve hate speech, and we don't want that in our community, but we do want your opinions, and according to our organizational chart, the residents are right there on top, so keep those comments coming in. Thank you. We are adjourned. Oh, until, what is our next meeting? Our next meeting?
August 15th.
August 15th, right here, 6 p.m. See you then.